A time when people actually appreciated journalistic integrity. A time when it was acceptable to leave your kids with an alcoholic youth baseball coach. A satire about network television that might have predicted the future. A Depression-era biopic about a folk singing icon. A socially awkward psychopath who takes his date to a porno. High school bullying gone very, very wrong. David Bowie stretching himself by playing an alien. Clint Eastwood stretching himself by playing a cowboy. Laurence Olivier ruining dental visits for a generation. A Star being born, for the third time. Every parent relating to the struggles of raising the spawn of Satan, and the ultimate underdog story achieving championship glory. Here's hoping there isn't anyone out there looking to take me out if this episode's ratings aren't high enough, because we're turning the clock back to the year 19. I am your host, Andrew, the mad prophet of the podwaves, and I welcome you back to the Revisionist Almanac, the show that gets into the time machine, takes a deep dive into past Academy Award ceremonies, and determines what the voters that year got right, and more importantly, what they got wrong. This is the 6th episode of the season, and one that people have been highly anticipating in large part due to the first-time guests joining me here tonight. And though they've been accused of it online, I can confirm these are not AI-generated podcasters here before you. They are the dynamic duo from Never Seen It, my favorite South Dakotans. It's Betsy and Trent Gorham. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you.
It's true. You can see us. You have video. We are not AI.
This is the first time I can confirm to people out there, these are not AI podcasters. Where did that originate from, Betsy?
So a few weeks ago, I guess months by the time this gets posted, we posted a reel, just a clip from one of our episodes, and it blew up. I don't know why. Something in it got the fandoms going, and we have had over, I think at the time of recording, 537,000 views, which is significantly above our average.
Insane.
But with that, it means you have an increased amount of people commenting and interacting. And we have had so many more people saying, well, that just sounds like an AI podcast. That just sounds like it's made up. These people aren't real. And we don't use video, so I cannot confirm with actual recorded video footage of us saying those words that we are human beings. So yeah, people just sometimes think we're AI, and we're not.
And it's not exclusively to that one reel,
No,
too.
it's spread to other ones.
Yeah.
I'm just 40 and bad at the internet.
Well, and the way you make those Instagram reels, you kind of cut up some audio here and there. So it might
Sometimes.
sound a little stilted here and there, but for the most part, it's whatever.
It's called editing. I'm bad at that
Yeah.
too.
It was wild. So for people who are maybe listening or watching this right now and they're not familiar with what's going on, you two did an episode on Tron Legacy, and we're talking about Daft Punk and the soundtrack, and you captured this crazy vortex of Tron fans and Daft Punk fans.
Yeah, it was
And
also right after the Tron Ares trailer had just dropped.
It was the same week. We did not plan it. It's just how it happened.
It was wild from like a viewer standpoint, like a follower of your show, to see I was seeing the numbers tick off, and Betsy, you were like posting about like how crazy it was getting. How wild was it for the two of you to see this thing like just explode?
Considering this is the only time we've had any sense of what going viral feels like, it's been pretty wild. And it's still going. We're like 3 weeks removed from the time I posted that. And every day we get a couple thousand more. It hasn't stopped yet. And this is also the one time that we can confirm people who saw that actually listened to the episode, because it is now our second highest, most listened episode. And we've been doing this for 3 years.
So needless to say, Tron Ares is going to be very well featured on Never Seen It. Like, you're obviously going to be doing that to like piggyback on the momentum.
I think we have to now.
Yeah.
We have to. If we don't, what is wrong with us?
I mean, I'm interested, not just to put it up as an episode, I'm interested in the movie.
Now we're invested.
Yeah.
We had never seen Tron, and we watched that 2 years ago. I'm not
2
even
years
sure
ago,
anymore.
because we did it for the Decade series for 83?
82.
82, okay.
And then we watched this one 15 years too late. But now I'm invested. I've gone down the rabbit hole of Tron, and Tron Ares, it's going to be on the docket somewhere.
It's amazing. And just for people,
17 years.
I just watched Tron today with my oldest, who I was home with him. He was sick, and I was like, hey, I've got to do some podcast prep today because I'm getting ready for 1982 prep, which is going to be a few months down the chute after this episode. And Tron was on the agenda. And I was like, hey, you want to watch Tron with me? And he's 7. And he was like, sure. I was like, I kind of explained to him what it was. And he's like, oh, that sounds interesting. We got like 10 minutes into the movie and he's like, what is this, Dad? Like, this is so dated. It's so bad. And I was like, okay, I won't waste your time with Tron. I'll watch that on my own time. It hasn't aged well for 7-year-olds these days.
They're much harder to impress when you are in a world where you can make AI generated movies or everything is computer animated.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so antiquated to look at Tron now. I get it for the modern 7-year-old. Show it to him when he's 17. Maybe he'll appreciate it more.
And we've talked about the fact that kids these days, they have the advent of all of the Marvel movies and how fantastical all of those movies are. It's just commonplace now that you have a big CG fest and it's another movie. But then you go backwards and see how impressive Tron in 1982 was. You have to have that perspective. And if you don't have that, then it's not that impressive.
And the context, the historical context.
Yeah.
Beauty is that we're going to be talking about something even further back on this episode. Like, we're going to be really in the grimy 70s era for this. And there's a movie that will probably come up at some point that's sort of Tron adjacent in terms of being a little low budget in the science fiction world. We'll see if any of us mentioned that particular movie here shortly. But I'm very excited to talk to the two of you. Betsy, I feel like I talk to you all the time because you're sort of the one that really manages a lot of the social media, I think, for the two of you.
Yeah.
And so I see a lot of bird stuff from Betsy. For people who don't know, she's big into birds.
I've reached the age. I woke up one day and I went, ooh, a bird. And I can't be stopped now. It happens to all of us.
There's a bird feeder right out. Yeah, there is a bird feeder right outside of our sliding glass door. Betsy looks at it every single morning.
That's great. So yeah, I feel very connected to Betsy because I feel like I engage with her a lot on social media. Trent, I don't get to engage with you as much, so I'm really excited to sit down with you tonight and talk through these movies because I think it's been like 15 months since the three of us have all been in a room together. We were on the Gmote Oscars special the night after, and we really haven't had a chance to sit down. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Very excited to talk to the two of you. As a reminder, this show looks back on past Academy Awards ceremonies with the luxury of hindsight to determine what should have won the Oscar for Best Picture, Best Director, and the 4 acting categories. Before we start things off, though, I hope you'll take time to rate and review the channel on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, as well as finding and following the show using the handle Revalmanac. Okay, so 1976. For those that aren't familiar with the year, the Best Picture winner was the classic underdog story, Rocky, which I've got right here in my hand. Before we dive into the categories, though, let's take a moment to look at the year as a whole. Now, part of the reason the two of you chose this film year, you specifically chose this year that you wanted to cover, and it's because you told me the 1970s decade is a bit of a blind spot for the two of you. So my question to you is, how did you find the overall prep experience diving into this year?
All right. So the nature of our show is that we watch a movie that we haven't seen yet. That's a very, very short version of what our show is. So looking at the list of movies, the first time we got it from you, we're like, I've seen like 2 of these. And it was really intimidating to start going down the process of saying, okay, I know what these are. We can save these for later. Or I've seen these. We can save a rewatch for later. But we need to also save some evenings to just really dig into these other ones where I've never even heard of them. What the hell is this thing? And I start to read about them and I'm like, okay, this was actually an important movie. And there were a couple here that blew us away. Like not even kidding. Right now, we're actually going to be starting up a new series. Or actually, no, we're in the middle of it.
By the time this recording
timeline is weird right now. We're about to go on vacation, so it's strange. But we're doing a series right now of just 1970s movies, and 2 of them were from the 1976 list that you gave us. So we did Taxi Driver, which I had never seen, and then we just did Marathon Man that neither of us had seen, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So I don't know, just being in this decade, I don't know if this is really your question, but being in this decade or just this year itself, I would say the biggest thing that I took out of it is this is 1976 year This is a presidential election year. This is coming out of Watergate. This is coming out of the Vietnam War. The country is in dire states. So I think the attitude out of this is a whole lot of cynicism and just looking at the country, looking at the world, and just being really disgusted with what you're looking at and really being cynical about the future. But and also you have a distrust of institutions, you have a distrust of anybody in authority, including, you know, your own family members, because hey, there's a big generational change happening as well. So in the movies that we're watching here, I think kind of the older times, you have filmmakers here who come from an earlier time when they're looking back on, like we watched Bound for Glory. We'll talk about that. But Bound for Glory is harkening back to a different time in American history that was really, really tough. So those people making those movies based on these are the other really hard times, so let's watch a movie about that or make a movie about those other hard times. Then you also have a movie like Rocky that is very uplifting, and it won Best Picture this year for a reason. Like, yeah, you want to go off and be depressed because everybody's already depressed, but also Rocky just has something about it, doesn't it?
It makes you feel nice.
It does, and it's really strange. So every year we do a special for our show. It's our awards special at the end of the year where we consider every single movie that was brand new to us. And 2 years in a row, our highest award, the best new movie that I watched that year, 2 years in a row, were both from 1976. So that right there just tells you, okay, we are invested in this year just because of that alone.
What about you, Betsy? How did you find the overall experience of this prep?
So a lot of what he said, the cynicism, you could tell the mood of the nation. For me, being a lot more of an old Hollywood movie person, what was interesting is the vestiges of the old Hollywood system that were those people who were brought up in it still trying to hold on and what they were coming up with in the seas. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes they were lucky enough to be in a good project. And then there was a lot of really bad projects, or they just don't know how to bring themselves into the modern era. And of course, we're only so many years into the rating system versus the Hays Code. So seeing how people are really pushing the boundaries. What can we do? What can we do without a studio system? What can we do just full stop that people will go and see? And then as far as like the number of movies, I watched I think twice as many as he did, but it was also what's available cuz some of these were hard to get. Like I had so many where I would watch it and I'd be like, "Hey, maybe you should watch this one." By the time he gets to it, it's gone. It was on Tubi or something and now it's not available. And even Bound for Glory, which is the best picture nominee, you can't get the movie. Like we had to hunt for this thing to actually be able to see it. And it's kind of shocking the number of these movies that were just sort of lost to time. We're 50 years removed, just about. And there's a lot on here I had never heard of. And they're starring people that are very, very famous.
Yeah, I think I was listening to the Big Picture podcast or Sean Fennessy and those guys over there, and I think they were talking about how hard it is to find movies and streaming from, you know, bygone decades. And I think they said on Netflix, the oldest movie on Netflix currently is from 1972, which is just
That's
wild.
no. There's another 50 years of film that is just missing.
Yeah. To your point, this was a challenging year for some of these movies to find. Fortunately, I have a ridiculously grotesque amount of physical media to my right here, so I had a lot of these films, and as do you right behind, which I appreciate that we're all physical media heads here, and I have a really good local library system in my city that I'm in, so that's where I found Bound for Glory and some of these other more challenging spots, you know.
Yeah, listeners, use your library. They have streaming services too. That's how I was able to watch a few of these was I went to the library's service for streaming and they had it.
Yes, I'm a huge advocate for Canopy, Hoopla, all those free services that come with a library card. They're phenomenal. They've got a lot of those really good hidden gems that you can't always get to. The 70s, this is not going to be a hot take by any stretch of the imagination. The 70s is my favorite decade for film. It's just, it's like every year was cooking. There were so many young up and coming directors that were pushing the boundary. And, we all kind of grew up in the 90s, late 90s, where I think a lot of all of our favorite films and directors from our childhood and our teens, they were all clearly influenced by what the guys and the girls were doing in the 70s with their work. And so every time I go back, I was so glad you two picked 1976. It's one of my favorite years, period. There were a few key movies I had never seen before that I did knock out for this prep. So I'm happy I got those out of the way for the most part. Some of them I probably could have done without. But it was really nice to go back and mine through some of the greatness from this year, because I could probably put this on record. This is a top 5 or 6 film year historically, all time. The best picture lineup alone kind of speaks for itself. But this was a wonderful time to go back to. It's very punk rock, the 1970s, in terms of the filmmaking. The guys and girls there, just like, they're doing stuff with low budgets, and they're just making stuff with their friends. And whether it's Cassavetes or Scorsese or all these people, they're having fun making film. And that's what I really loved about it. They hadn't been influenced by the studios yet. The money hadn't really gotten in their way, and they were just making cool stuff. I love the 70s.
There's the scrappy kids with beards.
Yes.
Because that's the saying. I'm listening to a podcast right now that's about all of the old Hollywood directors that made movies well into the 60s and 70s, where they were kind of irrelevant at that point. And then it's the kids with beards, the Scorseses, the Spielbergs, all those guys coming up, making drastically different movies than anybody had ever seen, because they could and they wanted to, and people were letting them.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with it. Now, okay, another question I have for the two of you. I've had other guests in the past that have been co-hosts of a podcast together, whether it's, a dad and his son, just two co-hosts in general. I've never had a husband and a wife duo featuring on the show. So my question is, as the two of you prepped for this year, did you consult with each other at all on what you're going to nominate here? Have you been playing it close to the vest in the Gorham household? What's it been like between the two of you for what we're about to talk about?
So when we do a movie, when we cover a movie for our own show, we we do an intro. We talk about what we know about the movie. Whoever hasn't seen it, they say, okay, well, it's starring this person. I think it came out around this time, and I think it's about this. Okay, we take a break, we go and watch the movie, then we come back and immediately react to it. We do not talk about it in the interim. It is maybe 5-10 minutes in between. So for these, we're not doing episodes for each one of these movies that we're watching, but we still have to talk to each other about it. So I think it's more, hey, we're talking about the concepts, we're talking about the actors and what we thought about the movie. However, we do not talk about the categories that we're talking about for this show.
We do abstractly, like, yes. I could see this person for acting. What did you think about that? What did you think of the directing? Like, what are the short list items you could put this movie in for? Yeah. Or do you say, heck no, I'm not nominating that for anything?
We're just bouncing things off of each other just to see, okay, this guy was really good, right? Or, man, this was really, really just long, and it was a slog to even watch. I don't even want to have anything to do with this.
Trent was falling asleep during one of them.
Yeah, so that's kind of how our process was.
Well, and I mean, the two of you have been together long enough as a couple and know each other's film tastes so well at this point from doing podcasts and just conversing in general and living together, that I would imagine you probably have a good understanding of what the other's leaning towards with the categories coming up.
We have treated this the way we treat our year end, where we don't know what the other one is going to pick. He literally had everything pulled up on the computer while he was setting up. He's like, don't look at that. And he's like minimizing tabs. Don't look at that.
Nope. Can't.
So that's what I was.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So every time we do our award show, she picks out her nominees and winners, and I pick out mine, and we reveal each other's to each other on the episode.
Because though we are married, we are two human people.
We have two different opinions. We are two different people. So,
okay, well, now we're going to get to one of my favorite parts of the show, which is we can really get some hot takes out there and talk about some bad movies. I'm going to flip the script a little bit. Normally, I would just ask you, what was a movie that you did not enjoy watching during prep? But because you haven't really conversed, but you've kind of been watching movies tangentially together, Trent, what do you think was the worst movie that Betsy watched? And we'll see if that's The actual one, like
Off the list while he answers.
See, that's the thing. Betsy has already completely passed me by as far as how many movies that she's watched. There's a couple on here where she would just probably say, yeah, it was fine. It was fine. But of the movies that we have actually seen together, man, we really did not care for Bound for Glory all that much. And Voyage of the Damned, I think, is the next one.
Would you agree with that, Betsy?
I'm trying to decide. Because here's my problem. I am an extremely generous movie viewer. Extremely generous. And no, he's pointing at the list on the screen. But the problem is I didn't like everything that you sent us. I liked most of those. It's all the stuff that I watched tangentially.
Yeah, she watched
Okay.
a lot of extra stuff.
I'll give you one. One of the first ones I watched because it was available. It was just a thing I saw, and I figured, when am I ever going to watch this? I watched Black and White in Color, which was the movie that won for Best Foreign Language Film in 1976. And I have now seen, I think, 3 that were in that category. And the fact that this won, it just boggles my mind. I don't understand because it was really weird. It's not very well made. It's like old-timey 1900s looking movie. Yeah, it was just very weird. I don't know. That was one of them. And then another one I would say is The Missouri Breaks. On paper, you've got Marlon Brando, superstar, multi-Oscar winner. You've got Jack Nicholson. I think he already had at least one at this point. And they're making this Western, and you think, on the surface, this sounds like it should be great. And then Marlon Brando shows up doing the most insane accent I've ever heard in a movie. At one point, he shows up out of nowhere wearing a dress and a bonnet, inexplicably. Like, he just shows up and he's wearing that. And I'm like, what is happening right now? I should be really excited about this movie, but it just goes to an 11 very quickly and then sort of just ends. And those two did nothing being on screen together, which really is sad because they're two of the greats.
I can confirm I did not watch either of those 2 movies that you just listed, Betsy, intentionally. Like 9 times out of 10, I try to get to everything in the best international feature category, which is usually one of my favorite categories. And you can find a lot of hidden gems in there that you just don't always see or don't always have access to. I kind of intentionally didn't go to that Black and White and Color movie because it just didn't seem interesting to me. So I'm glad you have now dissuaded me from ever taking the plunge into it.
Don't waste your time. There were more movies I watched that were international movies that were not nominated that I liked better.
I'll call out a few really quickly, and then if you have any others, feel free to jump in. First one I'm going to call out is the film 1900. Now, when I posted this film online, because I was kind of like documenting as I was watching it on social media, and I remember Betsy was like, she saw that I was watching it. And for people who are not familiar with 1900, it's a movie that the director's cut is 317 minutes. That's 5.5 hours, people. I watched the director's cut, all 5.5 hours of it. And Betsy was like, nope, you're going to die on the sword on this one. I'm not taking the...
You're alone.
You know, it has De Niro in it. It sort of feels like it's trying to be Godfather-like. It didn't need to be 317 minutes. I could have done with like an hour and a half cut, maybe a 2-hour cut. Like 5.5 hours was pushing it. For people who complain about The Brutalist, fuck.
It was available on streaming on various services the last few weeks. And as I was kind of winding down, I'm like, is there anything else I can watch? Like, if I have a minute, my instinct was just find a movie from 1976 and watch it. When I was coming down to the wire, I didn't watch something like Gator, where it's, a weird Burt Reynolds movie or whatever that was. But 1900, on the surface, it looks like something that might be worth your time. And I almost did it. But then I'm like, maybe I don't need to. He'll tell me about it. And if it's worth it, I'll visit it later.
You do not need to. And it's Bernardo Bertolucci, who's a director who's won a Best Picture for The Last Emperor in 1987. He's got a phenomenal film called The Conformist, which I'm a huge fan of. His movies are very slow intentionally, and you're either kind of in it or not in it. But I don't need 5.5 hours of slow. 3 hours, maybe. But A Star is Born, I'm sorry. I apologize to A Star is Born people out there. This is my least favorite version of said film.
Oh.
I don't know is that a hot take? I don't know.
I don't think it's a hot take. I think it's a valid take, but I also haven't seen the original one. I've seen 3 of the 4. He's now seen 3 of the 4.
Yeah.
Okay. So, which one's your least favorite of the three you've seen?
I mean, the Judy Garland one.
Okay.
It just did nothing for you.
It was kind of boring, if I'm remembering it right. But when you compare it to the Bradley Cooper version,
which is his introduction to A Star Is Born,
which was my first. It was my first, and let me tell you, that year of the Oscars, Star Is Born, number one. It ruined me. We saw it in the theater, and I was in tears at the very end.
And meanwhile, my first one was the Judy Garland one, and that one wrecked me.
Yeah.
And I think the thing we both agreed on is there is an emotional gut punch that happens at the end of both of those that they rob you of in the 1976 A Star Is Born. And by taking that out, you could have, like, I think if it had ended the way it should have ended, it might have gone up a little, because the overall experience, I actually liked it a lot better this time. I had seen it once before and didn't really like it, and I liked it better this viewing.
Yeah, something about Barbra Streisand I find a little grating on my film tastes. She can be much.
I wrote down everything good about A Star Is Born is Barbra Streisand. Everything bad about A Star Is Born is Barbra Streisand. And I love Barbra Streisand, but I have heard stories about how she acted on that set.
Oh, yeah.
And the credit that has never before and never again will appear. Barbra Streisand's costumes, her closet. Like, come on, that should tell you everything you need to know about it.
Yeah, and like that movie just turns into a concert film at some point, and it's not about that.
You did. Your jaw dropped when you heard her sing.
He's blown away by her singing.
He has no history with Barbra Streisand's musical career.
She's got pipes. There's no denying her talent.
Yeah, when she started singing, like really singing, he was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to the acting, I'm always reminded of last season we did 1996, and there was a Barbra Streisand film that year, and one of the guests, Kieran B. over at Best Picture Cast, he said something that's just sort of stuck with me forever, and he said, Barbra Streisand, do less, always. And that's kind of how I feel about her overall acting process. I'm
not going to fight it.
I've seen just the one movie, and I would 100% agree with that.
And the other one that I'm going to call out really quickly, and it's not that it's it's a bad movie, but I sort of like try to be kind to it because we're talking the year before Star Wars, and everything changed sci-fi post Star Wars. You two just did a lovely episode on this film. I'm talking about Logan's Run. It's just a little too dated for me and a little too put together by like cardboard and duct tape. It feels it just doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't work for me. The production design I find really flawed, and I just can't like have fun with it the way I do Star Wars literally the next year.
It's a sci-fi movie that is stuck in the 1960s, but it's 1976.
Yeah, if you just handed me the movie and said, guess the year this came out, 9 out of 10 people would be wrong.
Exactly.
Because it looks like the 60s.
I mean, it's literally shocking that we're talking 12 months before Star Wars, which is so dynamic and changed everything in terms of visual effects and the practical effects. And then you turn on Logan's Run, and to your credit, you're like, this movie feels a decade prior to what's about to come in the world.
So I think, sum up my feelings about problems like this of the year. This is the thing that I wrote down. They don't make movies like this anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean that in the most derogatory way. Because the stuff that's in here that I had problems with are things like Peter Sellers doing Yellowface in Murder by Death, and Vincent Minnelli doing a quasi-musical with his daughter. Why? No, it felt so out of touch and so out of place. And then, we do King Kong with a guy in a monkey suit. Like, why are we doing that the year after Jaws comes out? The year before Star Wars? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, there's this crazy cultural thing that's happening, like to what you said earlier, Betsy, where there's still like these sort of legacy directors and these legacy actors, and still like this old idea of what Hollywood was, and it's colliding with all of these new people who are sort of progressive in what they're trying to do and push the boundaries of the art form. And yet, while we're here talking about the Oscars, what they historically do is they're more inclined to give love to the things of old versus the new. They're not always, the Oscars aren't always hip to like what's of the moment. Now we'll probably
Never
parse
been
through.
a problem. It's not still a problem, Andrew.
We
You
solved it with Honora. It's over.
whole show about this problem.
Yeah, but I'll kind of keep what I'm about to say in the categories close to the vest. But there is a conversation for, was this year, were the Academy voters actually understanding the moment? Because maybe they were, maybe they weren't. We'll talk about that. But before we get into the categories, it's worth mentioning if Betsy, Trent, and I agree with any of the actual Oscar wins we're going to dive into, that selection will skip online voting. It will automatically get entry into the Almanac. So if we're all in agreement, we don't have to take it to a vote. We're going to list off what was nominated in each category and what won. We're going to wipe the slate clean. We're going to make our own nominations and our own winner selections. I've got a couple of notes, though, on the Academy Awards ceremonies worth mentioning. I haven't given these to you ahead of time, so these are just going to be some notes worth considering. So the hosts that year were Richard Pryor, Ellen Burstyn, Jane Fonda, and Warren Beatty. That's a wild foursome of Oscar hosts.
Wow.
Could you imagine like Richard Pryor? Like that's like even pushing the boundaries more than like Ricky Gervais at the Golden Globes, right?
I would say so because his whole thing was, unfiltered comedy
Yeah.
and using words that the average white American maybe wouldn't be comfortable sitting through a broadcast. And he has to tone it down to be in that setting. But when you put him with that group, that's gonna be an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and the idea of celebrity in the 70s is very, very different than what it
Yes.
is today. So him being up there trying to also entertain the people in the room and the people out in the audience is very different.
Well, and he's the only one that's an entertainer in that sense. He's used to doing it live in front of people. Everybody else is an actor who's used to reading a script. I've never seen any of those people go out and entertain a crowd the way Richard Pryor could.
We've all seen the errors Warren Beatty's made with the reading of winners and things of that nature. So.
He is the best at it. Come on now.
Okay, a couple other quick notes. So both Network and All the President's Men won 4 Oscars on the night, the most of the evening, but both lost to Rocky in editing, director, and crucially in Best Picture. Network became the second film after A Streetcar Named Desire to win 3 acting Oscars, the last to do so, all the way up until Everything Everywhere All at Once in 2022. Paddy Chayefsky won his 3rd solo writing Oscar for Network, a record that still stands to this day. The other 2 wins being 1955's Marty and 1971's The Hospital. And Sylvester Stallone became the first person since Orson Welles to receive nominations for writing and acting for the same film, that being Rocky, but he lost in both categories to Network. Okay, something else. This is also a totally new thing I'm doing for this episode. I don't know if it's going to be something I continue. However, we've already mentioned AI once at the top of this show and the idea that the 2 people I'm talking to might actually be robots. We don't know. But I have to bring up something very quickly. So I was listening to a couple of friends of the show, Adam and Melissa St. John, the hosts of Below Freezing, a phenomenal podcast. Go check them out. During their most recent episode on 50 Shades Darker, they had a whole new segment, and I'm just going to kind of steal from it, but I have to give them credit for coming up with this idea. So what they did was they had ChatGPT give an answer for what it thought they would think of the film based on ChatGPT having knowledge of their past episodes. So what this got me thinking, so the 3 of us now, we all do podcasting. We all sort of have our movie opinions living in the public domain. So I was curious this week. I thought, I wonder if ChatGPT has all of my information, all of my movie opinions, everything I've revised over the last year and a half. Sure enough, it does. ChatGPT is aware of who I am and what I'm doing. And so I thought, let's see how predictable Andrew is, because I've been accused of being predictable a time or 2 in my life. And so I said, ChatGPT, you know what I've picked in the past. You know my general movie opinions based on all the episodes I have done. What do you think I'm going to pick as my winners tonight? And ChatGPT gave me an answer for what the 6 category winners that I'm going to pick tonight. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to reveal what ChatGPT thinks I'm going to pick. I'm not going to actually tell you if it's right or if it's wrong, but I'll tell you where it's at, and we'll revisit this at the end.
Okay.
It's crazy. I mean,
okay.
You should go to ChatGPT at some point if you trust AI to any degree and ask it some movie opinions based on what it thinks of the 2 of you, because it was wild that it just like had my whole personality was built into the AI at this point. So here are the 6 category winners that I'm going to pick tonight based on ChatGPT. Jodie Foster in Taxi Driver for supporting actress, Ned Beatty for supporting actor in Network, Sissy Spacek for best actress in Carrie, De Niro for actor in Taxi Driver, Marty Scorsese for director in Taxi Driver, and ChatGPT believes I'm going to pick Network as my best film. But let's get to the categories now. So we're going to start with best supporting actress. The actual nominees for 1976's year in film were Jane Alexander for All the President's Men, Piper Laurie for Carrie, Jodie Foster for Taxi Driver, Lee Grant for Voyage of the Damned, and winning was Beatrice Straight for Network. It's also worth noting Piper Laurie's performance in Carrie was her first role since her Best Actress nominated performance in The Hustler back in 1961. This means she was nominated for 2 consecutive roles, though those were 15 years apart. And with only 5 minutes and 2 seconds of screen time, Beatrice Straight set a record for the shortest performance ever to win an acting Oscar. Betsy, I'm going to put the pressure on you right out of the gate. So first off, you'll give us any honorable mentions you have, and then go ahead and give us your 5 supporting actress nominees and who you have winning.
So this is where I would say I struggled the most. One of the things we haven't brought up yet was this is a very male-centric movie year. So finding actresses that basically would be worthy of being nominated outside of the people that were is a very, very short list. And I watched almost 40 movies. So I'm telling you, I was looking. And then the people who got nominated have 5 minutes of screen time and they win an Academy Award. Or like in All the President's Men, I didn't even remember who that was. She's just credited as the bookkeeper. Like she doesn't even have a character name. So that's the kind of year we're talking about here. So when you hear my category picks, keep that in mind. So for Best Supporting Actress, ultimately, for the runners-up, I put Lee Grant from Voyage of the Damned as a runner-up, simply because that movie overall kind of did nothing for me. And she is another in, the pantheon of one scene wonders of this year, where she had one scene. I was waiting. What in this movie is she going to do that warranted an Academy Award nomination? Because I haven't seen it. And it finally happened. It's like, she's emotional and she's cutting her hair. All right, then. So I couldn't put her in there just because it kind of did nothing for me. The other person I put as a runner-up, just because I had, like I said, a very short list of people, was Lee Remick from The Omen. Because we watched The Omen. That was one of the first ones we did. We have a show on our Patreon that is literally a randomizer. And we were like, 1976, fingers crossed, come on. And that's what it landed on. And that's the movie we picked to watch. And she's great in it. But again, it's kind of just, she's there. She's not doing a whole lot. So the people I ended up nominating were Jane Alexander for All the President's Men, Jodie Foster for Taxi Driver, Piper Laurie for Carrie, Beatrice Straight for Network, and then also from The Omen, I nominated Billy Whitelaw. But my winner, without a doubt, is Piper Laurie from Carrie. We didn't rewatch that movie because we just did it a few months ago, but last night when we were kind of locking in last minute things, I said, I just want to watch some scenes with her in it. And I said, nope, that's it. She's the one. Like, I had a feeling that's the way I was going to go, but because I hadn't rewatched the movie recently, I wasn't 100%. And then I watched like 2 minutes of her on screen and said, forget it. Nope, it's over. It's over. She's getting it.
Okay, Piper Laurie, Carrie, the gauntlet's been thrown down right away. What do you think about Beatrice Straight? You have her in your nominees. She's really just in one pivotal scene in that movie.
Like, she's good, but when I'm trying to find 5 nominees, that's how hard it was. Like, I'm going to go with the Academy on some of them simply by default. When I'm watching all these other movies, I watched, like I said, almost twice as many as Trent did, and I couldn't find any better or more worthy than what the Academy had put forth to me.
Okay, Trent, we're going to go over to you now. So any honorable mentions you have, feel free to shout them out, and then let's hear who you have nominated and winning.
No honorable mentions for this particular category. I will have them later. But my five, I'm going to start with Betty Buckley from Carrie, who is the girls' gym teacher. And again, we scrubbed through the movie last night just in preparation for this because we did not rewatch it because we just did it in October. And yeah, she's really good in that movie just as this person who is number one berating all these little shits who are going after Carrie and doing a very good job at it. And she's also being this very supportive, mentor teacher who is going up to Carrie and saying, "Hey, it's okay, but maybe you just need to do this or that and the other." But yeah, I think she did a fantastic job in that. Next, I know you like to talk about category manipulation and whatnot, but I'm gonna move somebody over who maybe got nominated elsewhere. I also nominated Talia Shire from Rocky. I put her in supporting because in Rocky, I don't think that she doesn't really have a huge arc in that movie. She's just there to support Rocky in his endeavor. She doesn't have an endeavor, but she does a good job at it. Next, I've got Billy Whitelaw in The Omen playing the nanny. Playing Mrs. Baylock. She is terrifying in The Omen, so there's not much more you can say about that. But then, kind of a wild card here. I don't know if anybody would ever consider this. I chose Shirley Stoller from Seven Beauties, who plays the prison camp commandant. So she's the big lady who is not falling, who is,
being seduced by
Giancarlo Giannini. She has a presence about her. She is just, I don't even know what to describe her as. She is just the embodiment of evil in this place, but then it's a woman, and I don't know, she just does a really good, I keep saying she does a good job, but no, her performance stayed with me up until just, again, yesterday we were scrubbing through some movies, and yeah, definitely. But my winner, of course, is Piper Laurie. I could not choose anything other than her. She is incredible in that. And as long as we're talking about it, and I have no idea if she is on your list, Andrew, but I have to say, if you want to learn a whole lot about an incredible lady, go and read the IMDb trivia about her as an actress.
Piper Laurie,
yeah. Yes. She had an incredible life. She wrote an autobiography in like 2010 where she reveals that she hooked up with all sorts of different other famous actors and celebrities at the time.
The youngest, handsomest men in Hollywood. She wrote a tell-all where she's just like, me and Harrison Ford.
Mel Gibson. Ronald Reagan.
Whoa.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Back when she was a teenager, by the way. Yeah.
That's getting cut as a social media reel right there.
Yeah, Piper Laurie, my winner.
Okay, you didn't have Beatrice straight in your five. Any reason why? Just like too small screen time for you?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Piper Laurie, that's 2 for 2 over in the Gorham household. Let's see where I go with this one. Honorable mentions, I've only got one. It's Jane Alexander and All the President's Men. Kind of by default, there's just, to Betsy's point, there's not a lot of great women in the mix in either of the two categories. It's really a disservice to the female talent of that year. Trent, I completely understand why you have Talia Shire in supporting actress. The only reason I have her in lead actress is because my lead actress pool was 9 and I needed some women in that pool. So I have the category manipulation is fully deserved. She is significantly more in a supporting role. I just kept her just based on the numbers. I just had fewer women in that category, and I needed some people there. Okay.
We were watching that movie. I literally told him, what do you think of this? Because Andrew's all about this whole show. You can do what you feel, and if you think this is supporting, that's where you should put her. And I hadn't really thought about it because we only had watched Rocky once, but this second viewing, I was like, oh, yeah, that almost makes sense too.
Yeah, I mean, typically I'll try to keep them where they are. That's not always going to be the case, but even a couple of months back, Seth Vargas, who was on the show, is a friend of all of ours. He made a good proposition for a way to change the categories and do away with supporting and lead and just nominate 3 actors in total, men and women, and just say these are the best acting performances, because I feel like we've gone past support versus lead. There's so much fluidity between the two.
Especially this last year we just saw.
Okay, so here's the 5 women I've got in my category. I'm going to start out with Tatum O'Neal in The Bad News Bears. I just love that she's a tough chick in that movie, and she's just like is not afraid to. She won't give an inch, and she's just. I love Tatum O'Neal in The Bad News Bears. Really big fan of her. Love her dad as well, Ryan O'Neal, Barry Lyndon, top stuff there. Second nominee is going to go to Piper Laurie and Carrie for everything the two of you said, deservedly in the 5. I've got Beatrice Straight in Network. I did a Network second revisit. Like I watched it many times before, but I watched it again for prep this week, and I thought, that scene is so strong for me, and like she's got a lot to do. There's a lot of meat in that scene, and so I felt comfortable putting her in my 5. She's not going to get my win. I'll say that right out of the gate. I've got Sybil Shepherd in Taxi Driver. I just love Sybil Shepherd in general. There's something, she's got a certain charisma. She's got a screen presence to me that it's very easy for me to watch what she's doing. And I think that what she has to do dealing with De Niro's character and how awkward he is. And like, I feel for Sybil Shepherd's character in that film. And I really like what she does there. And then my 5th nominee is also from Taxi Driver. It's Jodie Foster. It's a very well-regarded performance. People look back on it and consider it one of the great child acting performances. It's really hard to argue with that. However, this was a very easy choice for me. There's 5 women in this category. There's one. You go down a whole bunch of tiers. There's 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's Piper Laurie in Carrie.
Right.
1 for
All
1
right.
for ChatGPT.
Yeah, she's like, what makes Carrie such a sympathetic character is that what Piper Laurie's doing is so unhinged and diabolical that you just really feel for her.
When Carrie comes home from the prom and her mother is silently creeping behind a door to the degree you almost don't even know she's there. And then they zoom in and they turn the light on and she's just wide-eyed and crazed.
And it's just the little light coming through the crack in the door.
And then the whole climax of that movie is wild. But every second she is in that movie, she commands your attention. And yeah, I don't think we've stopped talking about that performance since we watched that movie in October.
We also watched The Hustler.
We watched The Hustler 2 months later.
Yeah.
And it's like
those 2 performances, and she is excellent in both things, and it's incredible. Like her career, she won 3 Oscars.
Well, was nominated, yeah,
or at least nominated for a bunch of Oscars. She gets this, and
then disappears for years at a time.
Yeah, and I mean, Toni Collette in Hereditary owes a lot to this performance in terms of just be somebody in a horror role as a mother, just being off the fucking deep end. Like Piper Laurie nails it. So love that we're all in agreement there. I feel very confident when we get to a social media vote. Beatrice Straight, all respect to you. I think you're going to get creamed in the vote because we're only talking about 2 women that are going to get to go to the vote on this one. It's going to be the Academy, who's got Beatrice Straight in Network, and then Betsy, Trent, and myself. We all have Piper Laurie in Carrie. Great way to start the categories with that one right there.
Hell yeah.
All right, let's get over to the supporting actor category now. So for 1976, the nominations that year were Laurence Olivier for Marathon Man, not All the President's Men. That would be a whole different movie. Ned Beatty for Network. Both Burgess Meredith and Burt Young for Rocky, and claiming the Oscar was Jason Robards for his work in All the President's Men. All right, Trent, it's your turn to start us off in this category.
I have a lot of very unique ones in here, and I'm just going to start off with my honorable mention. I'll let you wait to finish your drink. My honorable mention for this one is from A Star is Born, but it's not who you think it might be. It's Gary Busey's wardrobe. Just his wardrobe. Seriously, we scrubbed through that movie last night just to look at all of his outfits in that movie. It is incredible. My God. And we already like just the 70s, just architecture. We like the 70s fashions. Look at that man and tell me that does not support that movie.
So I thought in January for the first episode of this season that the goat from The Witch, Black Phillip, I thought that would be a hard one to top. And it's taken us half a year, but we've reached the peak for off the wall Gary Busey's wardrobe. That's awesome.
He didn't go so far as to nominate.
I did not nominate it, so the goat can live.
Okay.
The goat
Okay.
lives on.
The goat lives on. Okay. For my actual nominees here, for supporting actor, I put Robert Duvall in Network because I think he's got one of my favorite lines of all the movies that we've covered this year when he's talking about, hey, the show that we're doing is really, really successful. He says it's a big titted success. I just want to use that in my daily life. Burgess Meredith, you can't not give it to that man for all that he is and all that he was. He was a very big part of our life when we were children. He was a part of what was it? Grumpy Old Men.
Yes.
Excuse me.
He's
Grumpy
the dad
Old Men.
in Grumpy Old Man.
Yeah, he's the old man of the old men. Anyway, Burgess Meredith, nothing more to say. I also put Chief Dan George from The Outlaw Josie Wales. And not because he has a really great performance in the movie. I think he plays it very straight. He plays it very respectfully. And I think the way he is depicted in that movie is very respectful for being someone who is Native American. And this movie being in the Old West, I guess. Not even the Old West, it's during the Civil War, but still. Next is another kind of wild card. I put Alec Guinness in Murder by Death because I think more performances that are comedic need to be nominated for Oscars. That is number one for me. And I just don't see Alec Guinness in anything else. He's really funny in that as Benson Mum, the butler, the blind butler. And you look at a guy like that, and if you've only ever seen him in Star Wars as this very stoic Jedi, then you see him in that. Even after you've seen him in like Lawrence of Arabia, like come on, like you have to give him credit for that. And finally, my winner is gonna be from the movie Obsession. That is John Lithgow. 100%. That is my selection here, and it wasn't even really a deliberation in my own mind. Because I love John Lithgow as an actor. He is a great bad guy in that movie. And just in general, he's a great bad guy. I need to watch Cliffhanger again. But just thinking back on that, I didn't know anything about Obsession. That movie, and we're going to talk about this later, but that movie really sucked me in. I didn't know anything about it. I love Brian De Palma. And I know that the movie itself is very much harkening back to another movie that was made by somebody else. But I really enjoyed it, and John Lithgow is maybe one of the best things in it.
There's something about Lithgow and De Palma together. This is not the only time they've worked together where Lithgow's playing the bad, and they work so well together. Lithgow's like, he's going to go down as one of the all-time great actors who plays villainous characters. Like I feel like a lot of people know him from Dexter at this point. If you were like pull a villain, I just watched a movie a week or so ago that's on Shudder right now called I don't know, it's a movie about like a doll, and he was playing like an old guy in a retirement home, and he was the villain, and it was off the rails. And like anytime John Lithgow's in a movie and he's the villain, he's great. Love that pick. Now this is the second straight category, Trent, where you have not even included the actual winner in your nominees pool. So what do you think about Jason Robards' All the President's Men? Was it even in contention?
Love that movie. I love Jason Robards in general. I think these other guys just were more impactful for me. Again, anybody could have done that. Jason Robards being, one of those guys that can be this gruff guy, and obviously he's playing a real person, so that's even a harder thing to do. But I felt that I needed to throw in some extra ones here. Okay,
I respect it. All right, we're gonna go to mine now. We're gonna save Betsy for the end of this category. So I've got a pretty good chunk, to Betsy's point. This year guys got a lot of roles this year. There's a lot of guys you could nominate. I've got a pretty good honorable mention list, but I'll stick to 2 movies and 4 gentlemen. Like there's a lot of good stuff. Albert Brooks and Harvey Keitel in Taxi Driver. I just love Albert Brooks, and he's like not afraid to, like, people think a certain way about Albert Brooks as a comedian, and then he drops himself in Taxi Driver and he drops himself in Drive. Yes. Yeah. Albert Brooks rules. I love him. There's a great documentary on his life that he's the bee's knees for me.
When we watched Taxi Driver in the episode, I think we said we really got to find some ways to work him into the show.
We need to find just a reason to watch a whole bunch of his movies that he made and directed and acted.
So have either of you seen like Real Life? Or
the answer is no. Whatever you're going to ask.
That's why we said it.
You got to do like an Albert Brooks special, whether it's on Patreon or something. That would be like, that's in your wheelhouse right there. Okay, yeah, so great. Network, Ned Beatty and Duvall, both in consideration. Network's just like, there's so many people in that movie that it can be kind of hard to parse out who's doing the most because they're all doing a lot and it's spread out really well. So it was hard for me to put Beatty or Duvall in my 5. I could have easily done it. But the 5 guys I've got nominated, I've got Jason Robards in All the President's Men. I do think he's really good in that movie, though. That movie is clearly driven by the 2 leads. It's impossible to deny that, but I do like Robards in it. I've got Laurence Olivier in Marathon Man. That movie scared the shit out of me for dental appointments for a long time. I think I've finally gotten over the fear over the last 10 years. You guys, I think Marathon Man goes up like this week of us recording it. So like by the time people are watching or listening to this episode, head over to Never Seen It, check out their episode on Marathon Man. I can't wait to hear what the 2 of you have to say about Laurence Olivier in that movie. I won't expect you to reveal too much. Save that for your own show. And then I'm giving 3 different nominations to Rocky in this category.
Wow.
I've got Burgess Meredith, I've got Burt Young, and I've got Carl Weathers, the real unsung hero of that movie. Everybody gives Burt Young and Burgess Meredith the credit, but Carl Weathers is crushing it as Apollo. This is also the first time I've ever given one movie 3 nominations in a category, but I feel like what the guys are doing in Rocky deserves it. I could give any of the guys my win, quite honestly, but the person I'm going to give it to is it's because what he's doing in this movie is so different than what I remember him from as a kid. I grew up on the OG Adam West Batman shows on syndication as a kid, on like Nick at Night back in the day. I loved Burgess Meredith as the Penguin. And then when I saw him in Rocky, I was like, my brain couldn't comprehend the idea that the Penguin from the old Batman show was then in Rocky. And he's the heart and soul of the first 3 Rocky films. Spoilers for people who haven't seen Rocky. He only makes it to 3. But
that's us.
We've only seen the first
We've
one.
only seen Rocky.
Apologies. I won't tell you what happens, but he's a worn down character, yet he's got tremendous heart to him. He's a real human character. There's flaws about him. He gives Rocky a lot of shit at the beginning of the movie. He clearly doesn't see a lot in him, and then he's sort of takes advantage of the moment, but then he grows to have this great bond with him. I just think that he's integral to the entirety of Rocky working as a piece. It really comes down to Burgess Meredith and the Mickey character for me, so he's going to get my win. And let's go over to Betsy now to see who she has.
All right, so I'll get this out of the way right off the bat. My runners-up include Burt Young from Rocky and Laurence Olivier from Marathon Man. It's not that they're bad performances, and you can hear it. I know, Andrew, you haven't heard the episode for Marathon Man that's not coming out until the future. But the long and short of it is, I had this misconception that he was going to be really, really scary, and we didn't find him as menacing as we wanted him to be.
In that scene, however, yes,
You're
that
sure.
whole thing.
In that scene.
Yes.
But that one to me just feels like it's Laurence Olivier. Let's give him his umpteenth Academy Award nomination. And there were just other people that I liked better. Another one I'm going to mention is Ben Gazzara for Voyage of the Damned. I almost wanted to nominate him purely for his pronunciation of the word whores. I was like, at this point, digging for people. And I was like, you know what? For that word, you're going on the short list. And then just some other people. I had Robert Duvall as a runner-up because you're right. There's so many people you could nominate every single actor in that movie, and it would be a valid nomination because they're all just across the board that good. A couple other people. I had a lot in this category just as I was making a list. I put Peter Falk for Mikey and Nikki simply because I don't really ever see Peter Falk do anything but Columbo or the grandpa from Princess Bride.
He's basically Columbo in Murder by Death.
Yeah,
so.
he's an amped up like 1940s gumshoe detective in that. But in this, he actually has some range and he gets to do some things. And when we're parsing out like who's a lead and who's a supporting, it kind of doesn't matter for that. But in the category manipulation, that's where I put him, was a supporting. So that's who I had for supporting runners up. But my actual nominees, I put Ned Beatty for Network, Dustin Hoffman for All the President's Men, because I do not think he gets enough credit for the performance he's giving in that movie. And again, when you look at the two, while they are doing a lot of work together, it kind of, because it feels like it's more of a Robert Redford project, he does seem to have more screen time. That's how it feels when you're watching
He's
it
the
anyway.
focus anyway.
He's the focus. He's the one that's meeting with Deep Throat, and he's the one doing the, paranoid espionage stuff. But Dustin Hoffman is really, really good in that movie, so I wanted to include him. I also have Burgess Meredith from Rocky. My fourth nominee, no one's mentioned yet, but I put Zero Mostel from The Front, because when you are used to seeing this big, bombastic guy who does musical theater and really insane comedy, and he shows up in this movie, and that's how he starts. But he goes on a very dramatic, emotional arc. And I was very upset by the end of the movie. I was like, I have to put him in here. It was like one of the last movies he made before he died. And I think knowing that also made me go, yeah, I got to put him in here. And then last, I had Jason Robards for All the President's Men. But ultimately, I think we may have gotten mixed up and the AI is picking my picks because I picked Ned Beatty for Network.
I wanted to put Ned Beatty on my list.
For all of the reasons that, you and I talked about off camera, but he shows up and does this. Yes, it is one scene. Everybody gets their one scene, but he is so big and so bombastic. Not to mention, the man was in 6 movies in 1976. He is the supporting actor for the year. Like, when we watched it the other night, I had remembered his performance from Network, but we haven't watched it in 2 years. And we watched it again, and I'm just like leaning back into my chair the same way Peter Finch is, going, yes, this is amazing. I love this. It's an insane performance amongst a sea of insane performances, and I had to give it to him.
I don't know if either of you've seen Network a couple of times at least now. The thing that always sticks with me, you're 100% right on that. Every time I watch Network, like, I know the beats of it enough at this point that I can sometimes like tune in and tune out. And yet I found myself this week when I was watching Network, I was kind of like in and out because I already seen it plenty of times. I was just kind of like doing some last minute preparation. And then that scene hits. And all of a sudden I felt myself like tense and tighten up because I was like, holy shit, like
That's your attention.
Yes, and the way it's framed, like he's at a distance, and yet he still feels so large on the screen. It's brilliant. It's unbelievable. Love the pick there. Okay, so this is a wild 4. I have no clue what the social media community is going to go with on this one. Any of the choices really solid. You can go with Trent's pick. He's got John Lithgow in Obsession. You can go with my pick. I have Burgess Meredith and Rocky. Betsy has Ned Beatty and Network, and then the Academy has Jason Robards in All the President's Men. That'll be a lot of fun when we get to that one on the vote. Let's go over to the Best Actress now. So here were the nominees for 1976. We had Sissy Spacek in Carrie. We had Marie-Christine Barrault for Cousine. We had Liv Ullmann for Face to Face. Talia Shire for Rocky, and the Oscar that year went to Faye Dunaway for her star performance in Network. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kick things off for this category. Honorable mentions, I've got none. I apologize to the 4 women that were outside of my 5. This was just a really disappointing year. I'm mad at Hollywood. I'm mad at the studios for not giving women a lot of opportunities. I sound like a broken record. This is not the first time I've said it. It's not going to be the last time I say it. Women nowadays get so many glorious opportunities. Like, I'm much more invested in the female acting categories now than the male acting categories in the 2020s. I just feel like there's a lot more dynamism and just interest. I feel like a lot of the guys nowadays are just playing real life people, and the women out there are actually pushing boundaries for playing interesting, creative characters. Just look at what Mikey Madison did with Honora. So, and Demi Moore in The Substance. I could go on and on and on. So I'm glad that we now live in an era, the 3 of us, where we have women actually getting the opportunities, because the women in 1976 were just as talented as they are today. They just didn't get the opportunities because the people writing it weren't giving them the shit that they needed.
Because they were men. Sorry, what? Who said that?
It's totally true. So unfortunately, I don't have any honorables that I can shout out, but here are the 5 women I've got in my category for Best Actress. I've got Sissy Spacek and Carrie. I've got Liv Ullmann for Face to Face. I've got Faye Dunaway for Network. I've got Talia Shire for Rocky. And then the only place I deviated from the Academy is I have Isabel Adjani for The Tenant. This is a movie that's a Woody Allen flick. I hate Woody Allen.
Roman
Apology.
Polanski.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I get those two gross guys confused all the time because I hate them equally as human beings. There's no reason to watch The Tenant other than for Isabella Johnny, who's quickly becoming one of my favorite actresses for people who have listened to multiple episodes of this show. I like Talia Shire a lot, but honestly, listening to Trent give a pretty compelling case for why she's much more of a supporting character, she's not going to get my win. I really like Sissy Spacek. Apologies to ChatGPT. You're not going to get this one right, though. I've already given Piper Laurie the love. I think she's very important to carry. My win's going to go to Faye Dunaway. I think the Academy actually got this one right this year. As you know, Beatrice Straight, she's in that one scene in Network. Network is just a lot of dudes taking up a lot of camera time and getting a lot of dialogue. And yet, Faye Dunaway, for me, is the reason that movie works really well. She's the character that I am most interested in what she's doing. She's strong, she's cunning, she's intelligent, she's powerful. I love what Faye Dunaway is in this movie. This is my favorite Faye Dunaway performance. I got to give kudos to the Academy in 1976. I think they got it 100% right this year, so I'm going to side with them. So let's go over to Betsy now. Let's see what Betsy's got for this category.
So first off, I did watch The Tenant. That was the last thing I watched a couple of nights ago because I found myself with a little time. And I saw her name in the credits and I went, haha, I know who Andrew's talking about at last. I've been listening to these episodes and I haven't seen any of her movies. But now it's like I can say I have seen an Isabella Adjani. How do you say it?
Adjani.
Johnny. I have seen one of her movies. And yes, it felt weird when Roman Polanski is also acting in it and she's half his age and suddenly the ick got really, really icky. So I agree. It was okay, but that was so distracting. Like the movie was okay, but that distracted me so much I couldn't enjoy it.
Yeah, we also just recently covered Rosemary's Baby.
Yes.
So there's another scene in that movie that is very ick.
We're in that trilogy, his loose trilogy.
Yeah.
Now we got to go back and watch the first one and see how that one's going to ick us out.
No, we don't.
But I also didn't have a whole lot to put in my runners up. I was stretching to get even 5 without completely aligning with the Academy, which I refused to do. So I had Marie-Christine Barra from Cousin, if you want to be pretentious about it.
And we do.
I put her as a runner up. She was good in the movie. That movie is very French. That was what literally all I wrote was, this movie's really French.
That was the conversation that we had after watching that movie. Like, wow, this is super French.
It's a movie about people having an open affair and everyone's just okay with it because that is what it's like in France, I guess. You know, it's not a big deal.
No judgment.
Watching it as an American, though, it's different. So it's interesting that movie was successful enough in the United States that it was such a smash hit. And she got an Academy Award nomination out of it. I'm not mad in real life, but I couldn't do it when I was going through it. The only other runner-up I put was Linda Miller in Alice, Sweet Alice. She played the mother because even though it's like over the top and, you know, we're doing a take on Italian horror movies, but in America, it's like very dramatic, but she was giving me something. So I almost had her in my 5, but she ended up in my runners-up. But the people I did nominate, I had Laura Antonelli from The Innocent, Faye Dunaway from Network, Talia Shire from Rocky, Sissy Spacek from Carrie, and Liv Ullmann from Face to Face. So this was actually the first time I think I've ever seen an Ingmar Bergman movie, and she was doing the work. The movie is weird. It's a very strange movie, but she was doing the work.
She was that movie.
So I put her in here. But ultimately, I'm siding with you, Andrew. Faye Dunaway, when we rewatched Network the other night, she like kicks the door in and demands your attention every second she is on that screen. And for all the things we just mentioned in 1976, when women are not getting good roles, and there's still this idea that women have to be in the household, maybe. You know, we're not that far removed from that time frame of the little housewife in the 1960s with the white picket fence. And she is this woman who is coming in saying, you know, what if we put terrorists on the TV? We make it a series. And she is dead serious. And she is smart enough and good enough at her job that everybody goes for it. She convinces everybody. She's just insane in that movie from the second she shows up to the second she leaves. And I was here for it.
I do want to apologize that I feel like Face to Face isn't the best way to get into Ingmar Bergman work, and so I don't know if you're going to be diving in anytime soon. That's a tough one to be your bridge into his world.
That was what we were kind of reading was of like, I think we read the Roger Ebert review and he says, this is not his best work.
But she is the attraction here.
Yes, I would recommend checking out more Liv Ullmann films. She's one of the great actresses of her time, bar none. But yeah, not the best Bergman to start with. All right, so a lot of pressure here on Trent now. If he has Faye Dunaway as his winner, there's no online vote. She gets the automatic entry. She'd be one of a handful of women. I feel like Natalie Portman in Black Swan, all the way back in the first episode of this show, is the only other best actress to get an automatic entry. I could be wrong, but I believe that's the case. So let's see if Trent can go that way or if he veers in another direction.
All right. Well, continuing on the Liv Ullmann, I also have her on my list. Like I said, she is that movie. She goes through all sorts of different transitions in that movie, and you can just see it all on her face. You can see when she's in that room with the guy, and she is just becoming hysterical and not being able to control herself anymore. And it came through the camera. Sorry, I forgot to mention one of my honorable mentions here. I actually had Barbara Streisand. I kind of liked her. I liked her more than maybe I should, but maybe just the overwhelming sing-songiness of that movie kind of overwhelmed the acting. So I don't know. I really liked her. It's never going to hold a candle to the Bradley Cooper version, but for what it is, I put her on there. Next actual nominee, Sissy Spacek. She was in her mid-20s when she made that movie,
like
and
27 or something.
She acted exactly like you should have for somebody who's a senior in high school, who doesn't have any friends, who has been put upon her entire life, and I had a really hard time not putting her at my top. Next, I have Marie-Christine Barrault from Cousin Cousin. I'm very much impressed with her as well. Again, a very French movie. I don't know if I ever want to watch that movie ever again. Not much more to say about her. And this is somebody who I think might have belonged in a supporting actress category, but I put her in best lead. It is Genevieve Bujold from Obsession. In that movie, she plays two different roles. In that movie, she has to have a different reaction to everybody else on screen. She is commanding the attention of this man when she is found in was it France,
Italy? I don't remember.
I
already blocked it
whatever
out.
the country was. Anyway, she was very impressive to me. I really enjoyed Obsession, mainly because she was able to pull off, except for that final scene. I did not like that final scene where they come back together in the airport. It was the weirdest thing, but I really like that movie. But of course, my winner is Faye Dunaway. It's not even a question. Like, that woman commands a room filled with men in a male-dominated field, and excuse me, and there's no other way to really say it. I think because she has such unique aspects of her character. When she's having sex with William Holden in that room, she has this stream of consciousness. She's talking about ratings. She's talking about having a homosexual soap opera on screen or on their network, trying to have this extremely progressive network for 1976, and just all of the things coming out of her. I could not look away. I could not think of anything else but what was coming out of her mouth. And she's having sex with the guy, and she orgasms, and then she just keeps on going with her conversation. I could not stop thinking about her from that movie. Yeah,
and I'm glad we're all in agreement. I think it's got to be the win. I was hoping we'd all be that that way. I do know people who aren't huge Faye Dunaway fans, and I feel like people who even don't like her in general can all like sort of bend the knee to what she does in Network. It's a defining role.
Well, like Barbara Streisand, Faye Dunaway has a reputation for being difficult.
Correct. Yes. All right. Well, sorry, voters, you're not going to get to play along with this one, but that's okay. I have a feeling if there were another woman in the race, Faye Dunaway was probably going to win. So it's best that we didn't disappoint anyone by getting like 5% of the vote. So Faye Dunaway, automatic entry for Network. Love the win there. Let's go over to the Best Actor category now. We'll just keep chugging along. So the 5 nominees in 1976 for Best Actor were William Holden for Network, Sylvester Stallone for Rocky, Carlo Giannini for Seven Beauties, Robert De Niro for Taxi Driver, and winning on the night was Peter Finch for his performance in Network. Peter Finch also became the first posthumous acting winner, having suffered a fatal heart attack in mid-January of that year. Betsy, we're all the way back around to you to start things off for this category.
Okay, so for my runners up, first I put Gregory Peck for The Omen, simply because the thing I mentioned before, there were people from the old Hollywood system that were in really bad movies in the 70s. And Gregory Peck somehow lucked out and got to be in The Omen. While there are moments where his acting is definitely like, okay, this is the acting of a man from 1950 something.
He's being very over dramatic and like putting his hands up to his head. It's like,
but also it fits the mood of the movie. So I didn't care. I was, by the end, he's dragging this child down the pews in a church. Yes, Gregory Peck, let's go. I also had, not for Seven Beauties, but Giancarlo Giannini for The Innocent. That was one of the first movies I watched, and I didn't even know, I think at the time, that was the same guy from the other movie that did get nominated. And they're very similar in that he's kind of a bastard in both, but he also just has these moments of such raw, intense emotion that I now have like a short list of people that I saw multiple times this year or in recent memory that I'm like, I need to go and explore more of your work. And he is absolutely one of them. The other one that I have as a runner-up is John Cassavetes in Mikey and Nicky. Now I'm going to say something. Hold on to your seats, film fans. Trent and I are not familiar with the works of John Cassavetes. And in the last 2 months, we have watched Mikey and Nicky, Rosemary's Baby, and The Killing of a Chinese Bookie. And all of a sudden now, I am kind of obsessed with finding out more about this person.
We're so sorry, guys.
We're so sorry. I know.
The cinephile cringe is happening in the listeners right now.
I had to apologize.
That is what our whole podcast is about. Taking care of blind spots like this. And if this experience has taught me nothing, is John Cassavetes. I'm going to come back to you, sir. I'm going to follow up because in Mikey and Nicky, he is manic in the best ways. He is afraid. He is having the high highs, the low lows. He's kicking down doors. He gets very sad. I basically, after we finished watching kind of clips last night, you moved on. I was half watching without the sound on, Mikey and Nicky, just to see the physicality. And you can really draw how somebody is acting when all you can do is look at them. It's like the joy of silent movies. And he was still serving it, even when I didn't have the sound on. So I was like, okay, I really wanted to put him in Best Actor. But this was the hardest category because there were a lot of really good lead performances. So my 5 that I ended up going with are Robert De Niro from Taxi Driver, Peter Finch from Network, Ben Gazzara, The Killing of a Chinese Bookie, Giancarlo Giannini for Seven Beauties, and Sylvester Stallone for Rocky. And there was no chance in hell I was taking away his Academy Award because I picked Peter Finch for Network. This is one of those performances where we did Network for the show a couple of years ago, and we sort of did it like oh, what are we going to do? We didn't have a plan. We weren't very organized in those days.
We were going to do another movie that day, and I said, I don't really want to do a comedy. Comedies are really strange for us to do. How about we do this other one?
Let's
do
watch Network. And so
randomly.
we kind of just decided, we have heard for years this is one of the best movies ever. It's one of the best movies of the 70s. It won, all these awards. And you know about Peter Finch. If you know nothing else about Network, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore. And we watched it and we're so utterly floored. And I've never seen Peter Finch in another movie. People like to say, oh, well, if he hadn't died, would it have been the same? He died on the campaign trail. This man was going for that Oscar. He wanted it to the point he worked himself to death over it. But I still think he probably would have won because he's bonkers in this movie in the best sense of it. And I'm just hooked. And he even disappears for stretches of time in that movie. Like, he literally wanders off and nobody knows where he is. And every time he comes back, he gives this diatribe of a speech that is so relevant and poignant 50 years later that I'm dumbfounded. He's astonishing in that movie. And 100%, I was never taking his award away from him.
Can't argue with any of that. That's great stuff. For anyone listening, watching right now, what's a good email to send you all of their Cassavetes recommendations?
Oh, no.
That's going to be neverseenitpod@gmail.com. You just send us whatever you want. Which ones do you want us to cover? Because we need to do it. We have work to do. I understand. I'm sorry.
Well, that's the beauty of the type of show you do, is like, sometimes it can be tough to be like a quote unquote cinephile because you have to like pretend you've seen everything or like know everything. But like, there's always these gems that none of us, like, we all have blind spots, and we always find these things. And like, the discovery is the great part. Like, sure, like, there are all these movies I love from the past, but it's like the thing I haven't seen that I get to experience for the first time, especially as an adult, where you're like, holy shit, like you guys getting to check Network off your list randomly. And like if you had watched Network maybe at 18 the first time, it probably wouldn't have maybe affected you the way it did with more maturity. Like, I have those experiences all the time.
Yeah. And then, coming back to something you just said, other people I'm not that familiar with. Ben Gazzara, I have seen a handful of things where he's like a supporting guy. I saw, what was it? Anatomy of a Murder, I think. Is that the movie I'm thinking of? So something earlier than this. And I've seen him older, but I've never seen him really like here in the 60s, 70s, kind of in his prime, in his heyday. And when you combine him with John Cassavetes, I'm like, okay, I'm interested. And we were watching clips. The thing I kept going back to with him in that movie was he is cool as a cucumber. And there's those moments where, he has, again, high highs and low lows, where he's just drinking by himself in a bar, smiling to nobody. And when the woman next to him says, what's your deal? He says, I have a golden life. I have a golden life. And then 2 days later, he's hired to go and kill a guy. And, you're like, is it going to happen? Well, that's the name of the movie. And he goes through with it and just goes about his life. And he's so cool and so calm. And he looks amazing in his 70s, like, fucking polyester suits or whatever he's wearing.
He's got the style for sure.
Yeah. So he's going to be another one where after this year, I'm like, okay, I watched him in this. I watched him in Voyage of the Damned. What else we got? Because now I'm interested. You've wet my whistle. Let's see what else he can do.
I would like to hopefully get A Woman Under the Influence, which is my favorite Cassavetes directed film. Hopefully that will be on the two of your radar. I think you will really enjoy that film a lot. So eager to one day see a Never Seen It episode on A Woman Under the Influence, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Let's go over to Trent now and see who he has winning in this category.
Okay, I've got two runners up here, as Betsy calls them. I also had Ben Gazzara in my runners up here. Hey, this is the first time I've ever seen him in a movie. I'm talking about Killing of a Chinese Bookie. Again, you said he is completely calm with all of this stuff going on around him, all of these tough guys trying to intimidate him and try to interrogate him at that diner asking, "You're in the war, right?" "Yeah, I was in Korea." "You killed some people, right?" "Yeah, I killed a few." Like there's something behind the eyes. There's something there about him that by the end of the movie, he's still completely calm about all of the stuff that just happened to him. And he's just having a conversation with his employees.
Giving him a pep talk. Like, we're going to go out there and we're going to give him a great show at his shitty little strip club that he loves.
The weirdest club I've ever seen depicted in a movie. That show that they put on, what is that? But I was very, very happy to be introduced to Ben Gazzara. Also in Voyage of the Damned, he had a great performance in that movie, just in a very, very minor part. My other runner-up is Chris Christopherson in A Star Is Born, because the man is not an actor, but he is. He's a singer. He's not a singer, but he is. But I would say the stuff that really impressed me are his emotional moments. I saw in my notes that I said he has really sad eyes, and it's really hard to do if you're not a great actor to just depict your emotions just with a look, with your eyes. So he is in there. But my 5 nominees, starting off with William Holden. I almost left him off, but after we rewatched Network, there's no way I was going to take him off, because he is a co-lead with Peter Finch. There's no way around it. You could maybe try to put him in supporting or put Peter Finch in supporting, but you can't. They are both leads. So I had to put him in lead, and I had to put him on my list. Peter Finch, again, is on my list. He's not my winner, but I'm sorry, Betsy.
How dare you?
He is not my winner in this. I'm sorry. But Peter Finch, incredible thing here. This is a movie where, think about that Simpsons episode with Poochie, where Homer says, during every single episode of the Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie show, people should be asking, where's Poochie? It's the same thing. Where is Peter Finch? Because he's off doing whatever, God knows what. But yeah, he is in your mind, whether he is on screen or not. Betsy, you put this in your runner-up, but I put Gregory Peck as one of my nominees here for The Omen. I am not that familiar with the career of Gregory Peck, save for the Cuckoo's Nest movie. I don't think I've ever seen
Mockingbird. Not Cuckoo's Nest.
Why do I say it?
There's Betsy and the Birds again.
Yes, exactly. Excuse me. Gregory Peck in that other movie. But yeah, The Omen. When we did our awards special that year, The Omen was my favorite movie. Just last year, excuse me. It was last year. The Omen was my favorite movie I had watched that was brand new for that year. I was completely blown away. It's one of the reasons why Betsy and I this year started a brand new show on our Patreon that is just watching horror movies, because we have discovered in our almost 4 years of doing the show that, oh shit, we actually like horror movies.
We thought we didn't.
We never thought that we would be those people, but we are. You also had a horror movie for your favorite movie too.
Yes, we've hit critical mass with the horror,
Yeah.
and we've had to go further down the exploration.
Yeah.
Join us.
We accept.
One of the things that we always say is we want to be like the cool kids. We want to be into this horror shit, and we're very much in it.
But please have patience with us,
Yeah.
because we're
Same
old
with everything
and
else.
slow.
My 4th one is Robert De Niro. I almost forgot to put him on my list, to be honest. I almost did, because I had somebody else in here, and I'm like, wait, no, that doesn't fit. It's got to be De Niro. We just put out that episode about Taxi Driver, and we'll talk about the movie a little bit later, I'm sure, but the way he is depicting this character as this very internal, disturbed, troubled, whatever you want to call him, he was this guy before we had a word for it. He was an incel that, again, we'll talk about it in a little while, but yeah, he's my number 4. But my winner, this is the movie that I'm probably the most surprised at. It is Giancarlo Giannini for Seven Beauties is my winner. I was so impressed with this guy. When we watched Seven Beauties, I thought, oh God, this is another foreign language movie. I don't really want to do this. And it was a really slow burn at the very beginning of that movie. But by the end, I was floored by not just the movie, but the guy. His entire arc all the way through, he is showing me emotions. He is showing me anger. He is showing me just being this cocky little shit at the beginning of the movie, and then by the end he is a broken down man.
He has such swagger when he shows up on screen.
Just
like the
watch
introduction.
the guy walk. Watch the guy walk down the street,
and he's got a little
just a little wiggle to him.
But he's an idiot. He's a buffoon the whole movie. But he is so intense every time that director gets a close-up of his eyes. Sometimes he is like being a buffoon. Sometimes he is close to tears. Sometimes he is angry or broken down. And yeah, I couldn't get over that. Same thing with me. That was the biggest surprise. And we got to the end of that movie and went, oh no, we have a movie that we have to fit in here in an already stacked year. What's about to happen? So I love that the Academy recognized him in 76 for real, because, you know, in a world where people barely watch international movies now, for this one to have had enough impact, and like Trent, I was like, I don't know what Seven Beauties is. What is this? And he showed up, Giancarlo Giannini. I'm telling you, between that and The Innocents, I'm scrubbing through his filmography. I had no idea. Oh, that's the guy from the Daniel Craig James Bond movies that we have seen. And I have no memory of him because we haven't watched those movies very much, but I'm going back to watch those because having seen these, he had a year and I want to see what else he's got.
That's the first like really off the board pick in the best possible way. That's such a good pick.
I was so surprised that I ended up picking this guy. The more I thought about it, we scrubbed through one of the movies the other night, and just looking at his face, looking at how he fills the screen with just his emotions and everything, I could not do it. I could not do it. But I respect all of the other picks here. If I had my way, it would. I mean. I almost threw a wrench in here. I can't even remember who the hell I took off of it, but Giancarlo with a bullet.
Good pick. Love it. Okay, let's go over to mine now, and then we'll see where we stand with the vote. So honorable mentions. I've got Dustin Hoffman and All the President's Men. Both great point that that's really a Redford movie, and because of what he's doing on the production side, you know, I love Dustin Hoffman. I know he gets a lot of shit now for like being this hardcore method actor in the 70s, but it worked for me. Like, he's in it, he's committed, and he's given some damn good performances.
He has some phenomenal movies from the 1970s.
Yeah. I mean, everything from The Graduate on, from 67 to like 80 is he's just crushing it with Midnight Cowboy and on and on and on. Love him. William Holden in Network is in my honorable mentions just because this year's really, really dense with great lead acting performances. It was hard to get Holden in the 5. And then this is the only time I'm going to mention this movie, Bound for Glory. It's not a great movie. I like David Carradine in the role just because it's a little different than like I picture David Carradine in Kung Fu and Kill Bill. And like, it just, I hadn't seen Bound for Glory in a long, long time. And going back, I was like, okay, I can get into what he's doing there. And I rarely do this, but I'm going to call out my lowest ranked best actor of the 31 I have on my board. And it's Roman Polanski for The Tenet. Roman Polanski is he's gross.
He's also just not good. Like what possesses a director to put themselves in their movie? Because sometimes I understand it, but then other times, like, it's one thing to be Martin Scorsese in a tiny role in Taxi Driver where he works. Like, his character in that movie, fine. But Roman Polanski is fronting this movie where you kind of have to go through a lot of self-destruction. And it's like, are you doing some sort of weird therapy on yourself and then committing the rest of us to watching you go through it? Because I don't care. I don't care. You've made bad choices, sir, and you're a bad person.
Yeah, the less I have to talk about Polanski, the better. I will eventually have to like give him some credit for his directorial eye when we get to Chinatown inevitably. That's just like a hard one for me to, see through. But we'll get there someday on this show. Here's the 5 guys that I do have in my nominations. I've got Dustin Hoffman in Marathon Man. Again, I love Dustin Hoffman. I love what he's doing. He goes for broke in Marathon Man. I mean, Probably too far, quite honestly. But you know what? It shows on camera. Like, he looks like a guy who is really paranoid and losing his mind, and I love what he does there. I've got Peter Finch in Network. I've got Sly Stallone in Rocky. I've got Giancarlo Giannini for Seven Beauties in my 5. And then I've got Robert De Niro for Taxi Driver. Again, compelling cases for all 5 of these guys, quite honestly. But I'm pretty sure everyone's going to know who I'm going to pick. Before I get to that pick, though, quick shout out to Giannini. I thought I was going to be the only one even like mentioning his name. So I'm so thrilled that we've like given Giancarlo Giannini some opportunity tonight. I remember him most from the Hannibal film, which I don't know if either of the two of you have seen. It's the sequel to Silence of the Lambs.
I have 20 years ago, so
Okay.
now I have to go and watch it again.
I don't want to spoil it for anyone who's never seen Hannibal, but like Hannibal Lecter goes to Italy to like sort of get away and hide. And Giancarlo Giannini plays a friend of his who runs like an art gallery and starts to like figure out who Hannibal Lecter is. And from there, it's sort of this cat and mouse game. And I won't say any more, but when I was watching Seven Beauties, I was like, holy shit, that's the guy from Hannibal. And that's like what I remember him from. And then I started digging into him because, like the two of you, I'm like, I need to know more about this gentleman because he is a fascinating character. And I learned during my research of him specifically, he's the official Italian dubber of all Al Pacino performances since 1975. And when I sat on that fact for a second and I'm like, right? Like, I want to go back and watch a bunch of Pacino movies in Italian dub.
Yes.
To like get the Giancarlo Giannini effect because like I can see him pulling off the Pacino, the big, the loud, the explosive.
I get it, but wow, that you just
That's
blew my
something you
mind.
never even really think about.
No,
you think it's just some voice actor somewhere in a booth somewhere who does like 5 movies a day.
But
right.
The fact that he is the official one and he has done every single, that is insane. And Pacino has a huge career, which means this man has made an entire side hustle, an entire career.
Yeah.
That's what blew me away was I had no idea there was such a thing as being an official dubber for an actor. And I thought this guy is just making bank just doing Pacino movies when like that's amazing. That blew my mind. I'm glad you love it too.
The only ones I know of are the people who speak multiple languages and do their own dubbing. Like Jodie Foster is fluent in French. She just does her own dubbing in French. Because why not?
I would assume they got to get double paid for that too, right? I would hope.
You'd think so. They should. But yeah, there's a few actors I know that do it themselves because they speak the language. They don't speak, 12 languages to be able to do it many times, but they could do it at least once.
Yeah, so it's my mission after this episode to find at least one Giancarlo Giannini Italian dubbed Pacino film. I'm not sure which one I'll go. I'll probably go Heat if I had to pick one.
Well, if you find it, tell us which one you're doing because I want in on this.
I will absolutely include you in on it. Okay, so I'll get to my winner. It's not Peter Finch who actually won. Apologies, Betsy. Respect. He's going to be at the dance. He's going to get social media opportunities. My problem with Peter Finch in that film is the fact that when he's not on screen, like Trent said, all I'm thinking about is where is Peter Finch? I need him on the screen. Yeah. And like, he's just not in the movie enough for me compared to who I'm going to give my win to. And it's because the entire movie is him. It's De Niro in Taxi Driver. Like, he's the movie. He's the central thing in that film. Now, obviously, De Niro at this point had already done Mean Streets with Scorsese. He'd already done The Godfather Part 2, with which he'd won an Academy Award. However, like, this is on his Mount Rushmore, clearly. I think, for my money, De Niro's the GOAT of all time in terms of an male acting category. And for me, this is the defining work of his whole career. He's so immersed in it, I forget that it's Robert De Niro. I would urge anyone to go check out your episode on Taxi Driver because you both really gushed over the film and everything about it, but you both had a lot of really nice things to say about De Niro's work in that movie. And again, it's obvious. People who know me know how much I love De Niro, so there was never a doubt for me.
And this was another guy who was really busy in 1976. He wins an Oscar. All of a sudden, he's very in demand. He gets to make 1900. He made The Last Tycoon and he made Taxi Driver, three kind of drastically different movies for the same guy in 1 year. And there was a
Yeah.
lot of that going on. I haven't really mentioned it, but the number of people I saw in multiple
Oh, yeah.
movies this year was kind of insane. I can name probably 12 people I saw minimum 2 movies for, if not 3 or 4.
I'm also glad you both really gave a lot of love to Ben Gazzara for Chinese Bookie. That's a movie that on the Cassavetes filmography range, it's kind of like middle of the road Cassavetes for me, but it's only because, and I don't know which version you saw, but there's like a regular cut and there's a director's cut, and I think you saw the director's cut because it had that whole like show in the middle, which is just kind of like, I don't need that whole show thing that happens in there.
Where his performers are doing the whole act, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I prefer the other version, which is the theatrical cut, which doesn't have that in there, and I think the movie flows a little better. And so,
No.
like,
Okay,
yeah.
one thing I'm gonna say about this, because we don't have an episode recorded for posterity, and you can maybe tell me this and tell me I'm crazy, because I've only seen it once. I was thinking of Mulholland Drive. When they go to that scene in the theater, it just felt so weird that it made me think that maybe David Lynch had seen Killing of a Chinese Bookie and took something away from it to make his movie later. They're very different movies, but for some reason, that was the energy that scene was giving me.
Yeah, that I've never thought about Lynch maybe pulling influence from Cassavetes because he's making Eraserhead the next year from what we're talking about. Eraserhead comes out in 77. That's his first film. Man, maybe that's a good. You're right though. There is that sort of element of the dreamlike strangeness where it feels like heightened reality to a degree. Yeah, that's an interesting
It
comparison. I'm
doesn't
gonna have to.
make a whole lot of sense
Yeah,
to be in this movie otherwise. It's just a bizarre scene.
yeah, it's very odd. And from what I understand, I was doing some research on Chinese Bookie, and I think Cassavetes had some issues with what was going on in the edit process, and I don't know if he loved the theatrical cut, which is why I think what's readily available is his director's cut. But that's my only issue.
And that's what we watched.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll find a lot of other Cassavetes films are better, but Ben Gazzara in Chinese Bookie goes hard in that movie. He's really good in it. All right, we got we got 3 nominees when we get to social media on this one because Betsy sided with the Academy. They've got Peter Finch in Network. Trent's gone off the board in the best way possible. He's got Giancarlo Giannini in Seven Beauties, the Italian dubber officially for Al Pacino. And then I've got Robert De Niro in Taxi Driver. All right, let's get over to the director category now. So the nominees in 76 were Alan J. Pakula for All the President's Men, Ingmar Bergman for Face to Face, Sidney Lumet for Network, Nina Wertmuller for Seven Beauties, and winning was John G. Avildsen for Rocky. Lena Wertmuller was also the first female director to ever be nominated for this category at the Academy Awards. Trent, why don't you go ahead and kick us off in this round?
Well, let's just start there. Lena Wertmuller is on my list for Seven Beauties. There was a couple of moments here where I needed to point out there is a trial scene after he is found to have murdered and cut up a very fart-filled, bloated man. But there's a scene here after that where he's on trial. There's no dialogue in this entire trial. But you as a viewer know exactly what is happening in that room. You know the result. You know what everybody's feelings are. That right there, if you can pull off a scene like that with no dialogue and it's that long, that's extremely impressive. The only thing that I would say against her as a director and just how the movie is made is when we first start the movie, the timeline is a little off for me. But that's really the only thing that I can say against it. Looking at the prison scene, all of the shots there, I could go on, but she is definitely up there for me. I forgot to mention I had a runner up here. I had to take Richard Donner off my list for The Omen just because there are so many other ones here that I needed to throw on, including the one I replaced Richard Donner with, Brian De Palma for Carrie. Now I could have absolutely chosen De Palma for Obsession or Carrie, but because there's so many very unique shots in Carrie, I had to give it to him for Carrie instead. I really, really like Obsession. I just got a copy of that today. I need to watch it again. But yes, all of the different homages to old horror that De Palma does in that movie, with the what is it?
Psycho?
Thank you. The
Yeah.
the psycho screeching in that. Obviously, that is what he is pulling from here. He's not. The thing about De Palma is that he's not scared to be seen as imitating another director. He wears his inspirations on his sleeve and he puts it on screen. Obviously, that's what he's pulling from here. So I really enjoyed Carrie. Another one we haven't really mentioned all that much, but I will say Clint Eastwood knows how to make a fucking Western. All right. For Outlaw Josie Wales, that's about all he was really doing back here. And it's a beautiful, beautiful movie. All of the different shadows and lighting shots in this movie is just incredible. The one thing that I noticed, I could not stop noticing it once I saw it the first time. There's so many shots of the main character here kind of slowly going out of frame.
just panning.
No, the camera's not moving. It's just the actual actor is moving off of frame very slowly. I could not stop noticing it.
Stay on your mark.
You just kind of float off to the side as they exit the scene. Yeah, but the movie's good. I mean, I can't really say too much about the movie Outlaw Josie Wales. It's a good Western, but it's still a Western. I also included Sidney Lumet for Network. As you know, Network is an impossible movie to make, but he pulled it off. I don't know how else to say that. This is a very difficult thing to really pull off here. And my next one here, I'm not going to say my winner yet, but the next one I'm saying is Alan J. Bakula for All the President's Men, by taking an extremely dry subject matter, which is the investigative journalism at the Washington Post. Tell me another movie where it is a couple of journalists that are doing the really hard shoe leather investigative things where they're hitting wall after wall after wall and they're not getting anywhere. But somehow they make it work. Somehow they make it interesting and you are absolutely glued to the screen. But my winner is Network. My winner is Sidney Lumet.
Okay,
And
so
if you have heard our episode about Network, and I don't know if you have or not, but if you go back and listen to our episode about Network, our minds were just blown. But yes, Network, I'm going to save a lot of my stuff here for the ending, but suffice it to say, directing goes along with the movie itself.
okay, so you have left off John G. Avildsen, who won, and you've left off Marty Scorsese for Taxi Driver, two prominent ones. Were they even like in the discussion for you, either of those two gentlemen?
Scorsese, less so, because I mean, I don't think he's really doing anything not creative, but very original in the way he is shooting the movie. Yes, there are some. I mean, it's a New York movie, man. He is showing how dirty he sees New York. I think that really comes through, but it is a story about a single person, really. I think the movie is better than what I would say about him. So just the fact that it is a Scorsese movie doesn't necessarily give it that much extra credit for me. I think it's all about De Niro and the story.
Fair point. Okay.
And Rocky, again, I don't really see anything super special about how the Rocky movie was made. I think the movie itself is fantastic, but just nothing special.
Again, this is a year with really strong. There's a lot of options in this category. I'm going to go next, then we'll let Betsy finish off the category. So there are a bunch of directors we haven't even named yet on any of their films. Like John Carpenter made a movie this year, Assault on Precinct 13. Like you said, De Palma's got a couple of films in there. This great German director, Rainer Werner Fassbinder, made a film this year. We haven't mentioned Hal Ashby much at all. Nicholas Roeg, who did The Man Who Fell to Earth. There's a lot of really, really interesting directors breaking into Hollywood at this moment in time, which is why I think this is one of the great years of all time. For honorable mentions, I've just got 2, and then I'll get to my 5. I've got Lena Wertmuller for Seven Beauties. I wanted to get her in my 5, and I'm so glad that she has the distinction of being the first female director nominated in this category for this film. Betsy, to your point, it's shocking to me in a great way that the Academy recognized this movie in 1976. It feels well outside of the box. Like, even today, I don't feel like a movie like this would be in consideration for best director or best picture or anything to that degree. So that's I think that's what, for a lot of people, why the 70s is this great decade for film, because culture kind of understood what was happening in the moment and they were recognizing it. So good for her. The other person I have is Joseph Losey for a film, Mr. Klein. I don't know if either of the two of you got to this film, Mr. Klein. It was really hard. It's very tough to get. It's this Kafka-esque type film. It's really heady. It's very artsy. It's pretentious. I'll be quite frank with you, but I like a good pretentious film every now and then, and I think he directs it really well.
Well, then you should be calling it Monsieur Klein.
It's
I
not.
believe that is the title.
And here's the 5 people that I have though in my nominations. So I've got Alan J. Pakula for All the President's Men. Everything you said, Trent, is true. I am such a sucker for movies about investigative journalism. It's just like, it's near and dear to me. I wanted to be a journalist at a certain point in my life. I still value I value media and integrity and truth in a big way, and it all comes from this film. Like, my love of this genre all stems from All the President's Men, and it's what Pakula does with that film. He makes it feel significantly more tense and important, and like it feels more fast paced than it should given the subject matter. It's why I love it so much. So he's got to be in the 5. Brian De Palma, I'm going to give it for Carrie over Obsession. It's kind of a totality of year. Like, he made 2 really great films that year, but I'm going to give it for Carrie. Sidney Lumet for Network. Again, everything you said. Sidney Lumet also is one of the all-time great directors in film history. I could name 10 of his movies that I love dearly. I've got John G. Avildsen in my 5 because I think he does a lot with Rocky that I feel like the Rocky movies have gotten, I feel like they've sort of declined in stature because of all the sequels and everything, but I feel like on its own, John G. Avildsen obviously had nothing to do with any of the other stuff, and I just think he does a lot really good with this original film. It's very interesting to me because it's not really a boxing film for 85% of the movie. It's the story of this underdog character trying to have his moment. And then I've got Marty Scorsese for Taxi Driver. Now, we are fresh on the heels of me going directly at Marty Scorsese's Oscar win for The Departed. Spoilers for Betsy and Trent, who that episode will drop tomorrow from the moment we're recording this. So, like, in the moment that the 3 of us are having this conversation, that episode doesn't exist in canon. But by the time this episode drops, people will know I talked some shit on Marty Scorsese for The Departed. I don't think that is anywhere near his greatest directorial effort. I think it's the most obvious makeup Oscar in Academy Awards history. They just gifted the guy because they wanted to give him an Oscar at some point. There was a movie, Infernal Affairs, that was made a couple of years prior that Departed is just totally borrowing from. But I'm going to get back in the good graces of the Marty Scorsese people, and I think Taxi Driver is right there alongside Goodfellas and maybe Raging Bull. I like The Wolf of Wall Street a lot too. There are a lot of Scorsese movies I could pull in, like his best work, but I actually think Taxi Driver is very fundamentally a Marty Scorsese movie. I don't know if too many other people could make it, and the reason why I would say that is he is so New York. Like, when I think of a New Yorker, I think of Scorsese. You can see how passionate he is about the history of that city and how much it means to him in all of his filmography. And I think he understands the grit, the grime. You guys had mentioned it on your episode that, like, the city was in the midst of this trash strike where there was just trash and shit all over the street, and he captures it in such a way. And he also, the way he sort of shows the slow descent into madness for Travis Bickle and sort of creates this new idea of an anti-hero. Like, I mean, Travis Bickle's a villainous character in my eyes, but he's sort of an anti-hero archetype. I feel like a lot of people have used since, whether it's Tony Soprano or
Joker.
Walter.
Joker.
Joker, Walter White. There's so many people you could list off, but I think Marty Scorsese's best directorial effort is arguably Taxi Driver. So I'm going to give him my win there. I feel like he's got to be at the dance in this conversation, with all respect to all the other gentlemen. All right, let's go over to Betsy now.
Okay, so my honorable mentions, I also put John G. Avildsen for Rocky here, just because when I'm looking at all of the other movies by all of the other directors, there were just some other people doing way more interesting things to me. It's not bad. I just didn't have space. I only have 5 spots for you, and I couldn't include him. I didn't feel good about it. So he's a runner up. I also have Richard Donner for The Omen because, again, we just loved The Omen. And there's moments where, like, he's in the house and there's that devil dog, and we know where the dog is going, but we can't see the dog, but we're panning the camera and, we're just building suspense without looking at anything. Not every director's going to do it that way. They're going to show you the dog, and the dog's going to walk all the way down the stairs, and then he's going to shut the door on the dog. But Richard Donner's like, I have a better way to do this. And it's little details like that that make a difference to a horror movie, especially when you're trying to build a lot of tension. And we really enjoyed The Omen and didn't think we were going to like it at all. So I had to at least mention him. But ultimately, my 5 nominees are Clint Eastwood for The Outlaw Josie Wales. That is a guy who learned how to make Westerns from the best of the best. And you can tell he was paying attention. And this is not his first movie. It was like his 7th directed movie by this point. But you can really see him hitting his stride. Like from here and then moving forward, there is a stretch of like really good Clint Eastwood directed movies. And I had heard of The Outlaw Josie Wales, but I kind of didn't even know he directed it until we were watching the movie. And I'm like, okay, you're on the list, sir. I get it. Next, I have Sidney Lumet for Network. Just the things he's doing, like you're showing the studio, but then you're also showing it through the television screen and various forms of it. And you have to think about the size and scope of that in like 2 different ways at the same time. And it takes some skill to pull off. And the way they also make it like very bright and shiny by the end, where it's like the nightly news program with the soothsayers. And he's going out there in a spotlight and spewing, his preaching, his sermon. And the way he's like getting really close to him and really far away, I'm obsessed. I love it. I also have Alan J. Pakula for All the President's Men. Some of the stuff that I really like are the long takes. He lets that camera roll for a very long time. And at the same time that he's doing that, he's doing like a dual focus thing.
Dual focus in a lot of movies
where
this
you've
year.
always got something in the background in that newsroom that is historically relevant. Like there's a thing where I think it's somebody is dropping out of a campaign.
Yeah.
And that's going on in the background while these 2 guys are not paying attention. They are in the foreground doing the work. And he does it many times throughout the movie.
Yeah, again, having something very, very mundane like a phone call be very, very exciting, where he's like trying to write his notes and there's stuff going on in the background that he's distracted. And at one time during one of these long takes, Robert Redford actually flubbed a line and they kept it in the movie because he called the guy on the phone the wrong name. Because that's what you would do if you're on the phone with somebody and you're flustered.
He captured some honest moments here. I also have Martin Scorsese for Taxi Driver. Just pointing the camera out the window and like, this is New York. Like there are few guys who can really, as you said, capture what it is to be in New York. He also has some really interesting like slow reveals, like when we see the Mohawk for the first time, where it's just like we're looking at him like unraveling some gum and then pan up and he's got this wild new look. There's some reveals like that. And my last nominee is Lena Wertmuller for Seven Beauties. I think what she's doing here is really modern in a way that not a lot of other people this year were doing. Like she is trying crazy angles. She's got really low and she's really high and she's really close. And the way she's introducing his character and other characters are so bold. Giancarlo Giannini walks in flooded in red light and shadow. And then he's wearing this hat and he's smoking a cigarette and she gets up and there's like just light across his eyes. I'm so obsessed. And so frankly, she's my winner because she made history being the first woman to be nominated, and for good reason. It is so, there are shots in this movie I have been thinking about for like 2 months. And when we were reviewing it last night, this guy was like, I don't know if I would include her. I said, are you sure? Because did you watch the same movie I did? Because I just think there's this scene where he goes and confronts her sister's boyfriend, and it's like long shot, close-up shot, and then he gets woken up on the floor after he's been knocked out, and he's like crawling towards the camera, and I'm like, this is like Quentin Tarantino Pulp Fiction shit. And she's doing this in 76. I'm sorry, like the men, yeah, they're doing the work, but she's the one that wowed me.
That is so amazing. Pardon the pun here, but the beauty of this show, I think, is sometimes I wonder if I'm putting my guests through too much trouble doing the deep dives, because I'm like, this is a lot of work. It's a lot of prep. It can be a challenge. And I feel like consistently, the thing that I get the most positive out of is a situation like this where you two have unlocked 7 beauties for all 3 of us. Like, I have never seen that movie. I would have never gotten to it unless we had dove deep into 1976. And
Never heard of it.
Either had I.
It existed.
And here we are. We've spent, I feel like, more time on that movie than several others, which is, again, in a great way. And so, yeah, I feel like consistently I run into these situations where these deep dives uncover a lot of great gems for all of us. And so I feel like it kind of makes up for the pain I probably put you through having to watch 40 movies in a very short span of time while you have plenty of other things to do in your life.
I have to, but I did it because I wanted to. It's, when am I gonna do this? That is the way I approached this, was when am I ever gonna watch that movie if I'm not gonna watch it right now?
And honestly, because we have our own show, it is extremely rare that we would watch a movie and not do an episode about it. We're in the era right now where we do 1 episode on our show every week. We started off doing 2 episodes a week. Every Sunday and every Wednesday, we would put out a new movie. And we would just consume, we would just devour these movies over and over and over again. And we would never even think to watch a brand new movie that we would not do an episode for. We're breaking our rule for you. We are. So there's so many movies here that we could have done an episode for, which is why we had to do, we did Taxi Driver, we did Marathon Man, Logan's Run, we did The Omen, Carrie, all because, The Omen was a happy accident. Yeah, seriously. There's so many movies here that we could have done a really, really deep dive on, and 7 Beauties is one of them. And nobody would listen to the episode. I know that for a fact. But because we had so much out of the conversation after we saw the movie for the first time, we were up an extra hour that night just talking about the movie.
That was literally the moment in prep where I went, oh no, am I going to have to knock a movie that people really love off of my list to make room? Because I'm starting to get concerned.
Well, I think one of the fun things about the fact that you have brought Lena Wertmuller to the social media poll is it's going to force some of the listeners of this show to reevaluate, because I feel like a lot of times people will reach out to me and they'll be like, hey, they'll see what is coming up in the vote and they'll go, wow, I haven't seen that performance or that director or whatever. I feel like this is going to drive some people hopefully to check out 7 Beauties if they have access to it, and will unlock that movie for other people, because it has definitely been unlocked for the 3 of us.
My local library had it on their streaming service.
I think that's where I got it too, was on Canopy, if I'm not mistaken.
Second plug, kids, if you want to see this movie, check out your library. I'm telling you.
Libraries forever. Okay, so we got 4 different people that are going to be at the social media vote for Best Director 76. Brent's got Sidney Lumet for Network. I've got Martin Scorsese for Taxi Driver. Betsy's got Lena Wertmuller for 7 Beauties, and the Academy had John G. Avildsen for Rocky.
We're all getting fed up of endlessly scrolling for our next movie fix. So to get passionate about films again, join 3 movie mates on the Never Ending Watchlist movie podcast, where we take you on a movie journey as we seek to build the ultimate movie watchlist.
seen. All of those films are absolute bangers.
Yep.
Absolute bangers.
Bangers.
I applaud you again, sir.
We deep dive specific movies to find out facts, theories, and funny takes, and ultimately decide whether a movie is worthy of being on the watch list.
I can't recommend this film.
Ouch.
We'll debate top fives, rank directors' movies, and interview film fans just like you.
And she is an incredibly complex villain. She's fierce, she's immovable.
So whether you're a casual movie fan or hardened cinephile, we've got plenty for you to enjoy.
I got outvoted by the guy who chose the movie for this episode.
Join me, Damon Carter, Alex Hall, and Cam Young on the Never Ending Watchlist Movie Podcast every week on Podcast Everywhere.
It's easier to find Cameron on Facebook than it is to find a plot in existence. Right, anyway, for now, it's farewell to Alex.
All right, let's get to the big one, the Best Picture. So your 5 nominees in 1976 were All the President's Men, Bound for Glory, Network, Rocky, and Taxi Driver, with Rocky getting its hand raised as the top film of that year. Now, because the Academy only had 5 nominees in 1976, we are going to adhere to those rules, and we're going to only have 5 spots for our nominees. I will take the bullet on this one and go first, and then I will get over to the two of you. Honorable mentions. We've already mentioned a bunch of these movies, so I won't go too in depth. I haven't really mentioned this movie at all. The Omen is on my honorable mentions list. I'm glad that you both really love The Omen. It's made me so happy to know that you're discovering this world of horror. And The Omen is a great entry point for horror. And the reason why it's so great is because Richard Donner is such a chameleon as a director. He's not like just a horror director. He made Superman, for God's sake. Like this dude, Richard Donner, is a phenomenal director. He's been able to dabble in all these different genres, and what he does with The Omen is remarkable work. He's a brilliant director, and The Omen almost got into my 5. Marathon Man was on the outside looking in, but I enjoy Marathon Man. I enjoyed it more on this rewatch. And then Mikey and Nikki. I thought this would be the first time Mikey and Nikki would come up. I have a really good time with that because I like the dynamic between Cassavetes and Gazzara. Like, I just find them a lot of fun together. The movie has some flaws to it. Like, the plot doesn't necessarily engage me that much, but I do enjoy Mikey and Nikki. But for me, there's like 5 clear nominees, and they're the big 5 for me this year. It's All the President's Men. It's Carrie. It's Network, it's Rocky, and it's Taxi Driver. So it's the same 5 films that mirror my 5 directors. Not a huge surprise there. I do think we need to give it to the Academy for a second. 1976, we've talked about it before. They kind of did understand the moment. They knew the assignment this year. 4 of the 5 films in their best director or in their best picture lineup are all-time films. Bound for Glory, you can throw that one out there. I if you haven't seen Bound for Glory, I wouldn't go out of your way to see it. There's not a ton to mine into, but the other 4 movies up for Best Picture that year are all-time classics. I respect Rocky. It did a lot for the sports genre. It did a lot for the idea of this underdog story. This comes down, though, to Taxi Driver and Network. Again, not a lot of surprise. ChatGPT was very much understanding where I might go with this one. I think we're going to anger some people potentially, because I know there's going to be a section of people online that expect the movie to be in the social media vote. And I'm pretty sure I know what the two of you are going to pick. So I'm putting myself on the line a little bit because I'm not going to pick a certain movie that people might expect me to pick. I'm picking Network as the best film of 1976. Again, respect to Taxi Driver, respect to Marty Scorsese. I love that film a lot. But Network was so important in 1976, and it's only gotten more important every single decade. It's a horror film now almost at this point in time for the way we are as a society and media and everything. I don't have to go in depth. We all know what we're talking about. But the things that make Network great, it's directed well. The screenplay is flawless. The actors are all working in perfect harmony with each other. They're all important. And yet those men all still allow Faye Dunaway to be the star of that film for me, which is why we all agreed that she deserved the win. Everything about Network is perfect, top to bottom. There's not a single point in that movie that needs to be trimmed, edited, touched up, whatever. It's flawless. It's the best film of 1976. It might be the best film of the 1970s. It might be the best film of all time. I don't know. But Network is perfect. All right. Let's go over to Betsy now.
All right. So you kind of touched on Bound for Glory. This is the one that I had no qualms immediately. First decision, that movie's gone. I had never heard of Bound for Glory. This movie got nominated for Best Picture and then disappeared for the rest of time, as far as I'm concerned. And having just recently watched A Complete Unknown and having then watched a movie about Woody Guthrie, there's a part of me that wonders how much of it is just bullshit, because it's all about creating a persona as a folk hero. And so I didn't feel like I actually learned anything or gained anything. I didn't need a movie about Woody Guthrie. That was just kind of the long and short of it. So I sort of watched it. Okay, I've seen it, and I'm moving on.
I feel like that movie was also, it's the old Oscar voters in there wanting to have a movie in there
thing
about the old times back in the 1930s.
The way we used to do the movies.
The last time the country was going through a whole lot of shit.
Exactly. So you got the parallel right, like the times are hard message. But the movie itself doesn't need to be here when there's other stuff that could have taken its place. My only runner-up otherwise, and I'm not calling Bound for Glory a runner-up, it can just go away. But my only other runner-up is The Omen. And I wanted so badly to get it in the Best Picture. I know, Trent is shocked. Trent is very shocked.
I'm very disappointed.
He's very disappointed. But you'll see why in a minute, because the movies that I nominated are All the President's Men. It's everything Trent said. It's about journalism. But they also make it like a spy movie where there is like clandestine shit and we're meeting in stairwells. And also, it is relevant to today. 50 years later, we are still talking about the relevance of All the President's Men.
By the way, your listeners might be interested to know, if you do not follow the Gmote podcast, we covered All the President's Men on their podcast last year sometime.
Last year, yeah. So we have a whole episode about that, but not on our platform.
That's right.
The next movie, of course, is Network, which was a satire, 1976. But it is just kind of the world we live in now. Literally, I wrote some quotes straight from this movie. Put that lunatic on the air to yell bullshit, and putting a manifestly irresponsible man on television. And I'll leave you with that when I tell you about why this movie is still relevant today. My next nominee is Rocky, because there is a sadness to this movie, but such a determination that you can completely get why this is the movie that ultimately took the award, because there's a glimmer of hope. He doesn't win. He doesn't need to win, because as far as he's concerned, he did win. He did the thing he wanted to do. And it is just in a sea of bad times, this little glimmer of hope at the movies. So I completely understand how it ended up winning. And here's the one that's going to surprise you. Hold on to your hat, Trent. I nominated Seven Beauties because it is by far the most surprising movie that we watched in this bunch. It is, I already said it, it is infinitely better than the movie that actually got nominated and won for International Picture. It's not even nominated in that category, if I'm remembering correctly, which is so bizarre that you would put it in director and you put it in actor, but then the actual category it's designed to fit in, you don't nominate it. That makes no sense. But I was struggling with this one, and I had to put it in here because by the logic of where we are now, where you can get a movie like Parasite in both or Roma in both, where it's getting nominated for Best Picture and International, I had to right some wrongs. Since it didn't get nominated for foreign language film, I am nominating it for Best Picture. And then my last one is Taxi Driver, because once again, it is disturbing and somehow extremely relevant. 3 of these movies, it is kind of freaky how much they meant in 1976 and they still mean in 2025. We're almost 50 years removed, but the themes are still so prescient to what we're going through. But ultimately, I picked Network because you can listen in real time in our episode to us realizing how relevant and important that movie still was 2 years ago. We watched it last week. It's still relevant today. And it's a satire. The movie is about putting the most insane things you can think of on TV and thinking it's a good idea. It was supposed to be funny. And now it's not funny anymore, but it's still a phenomenal, sensational movie. All of the words. Please, if you've never seen Network, stop listening to this. Go watch Network.
Wait, I need to go, Betsy.
No, they can come back and listen to you after they've watched the movie. I insist. I'll see you in 5 minutes, but for you, it's like 2 hours.
We're gonna drop in the never seen it audio for when you guys do the little break where and then so people can go watch the movie now. I'll put in the music and then come back and then we'll get to Trent. All right, Trent. Let's see if you are in line with Betsy and myself.
Let's bring it home. Number 1, I have All the President's Men. This movie, Betsy, you showed me this movie when we were still dating.
I can take credit for this one.
That's right. And me being from not quite a journalism background, I dabbled in it. I thought about going after it. I did not. I likened myself to be a journalist, but I never did it. So this fascinated me the first time I saw this. I knew about, Nixon. I knew about Watergate. I knew about what was kind of happening here, but I didn't know the journalists behind how it broke. And this was fascinating to me. So watching it for the first time and seeing it so many different times since then.
We also saw Woodward and Bernstein speak a couple years ago.
Yeah, wow. They came to our town,
and it was awesome. It was such a cool event.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Next, Rocky. Rocky, I did not expect to like the first time I watched it. I thought it was going to be really cheesy. I don't really like a lot of sports movies. I especially don't like uplifting sports movies. But there is what I wrote in my notes here. I said, I feel like there is a low simmer of rage and discomfort with his lot in life. And he has no real job, no real prospects, no money to his name. He lives in a shithole, but yet he has hope. He has the genuineness of himself still inside. He hasn't been completely broken yet. He still has the ability to motivate himself and still help other people along the way. The guy who was the brother of what's her name? Talia Shire. Yeah.
Paulie,
he helps Paulie put the fucking advertisement on his thing in front of how many millions of people watch this thing. Oh, yeah. I really enjoyed Rocky the first time. It was actually my runner-up during our award season that year. It was one of 3, and the other one was already in here. But we'll get to that in a second. Next is The Omen. I obviously have to put The Omen in here because it was my favorite movie last year. The Omen blew me away. The Omen just solidified my desire to watch more and more horror movies. And the fact that you got Gregory fucking Peck, a man who is a legend in Hollywood. He's one of the most respected actors of all time in your horror movie, and it's good. And he's not doing it for a paycheck. You would think a guy like this at this late in his career, yeah, he's just going to throw in, he's going to do minimal effort. No, not in the slightest. But yeah, the fact that I say this on our show sometimes, the fact that a movie maker has no problem with the idea of killing a child and putting that on screen, I am totally there for it.
Have you seen Nosferatu from last year?
No.
Not yet.
No.
Well, with what you just said, go into it with that.
All right. Next, I had to put Seven Beauties on my list because that movie was the most surprising out of all of them by far. That movie just, like I said, we have been ruminating about this movie. I've thought about it just myself. We rewatched some of the scenes last night, and I was reminded how brilliantly that movie is shot, how much I felt and how much he felt throughout the entirety of the movie. And not knowing what it is, I think because I was so surprised at my reaction to it, I could put it near the top. but it's not my winner. My winner is Network. For all the reasons we've already said. The one question that is burned into my brain here, the writer of this movie, whoever that was, how did you know? How did you know what the world would become?
It's wild.
I could go and list off so many different things. They implant the idea early on in the movie. They implant the idea of a death-themed television programming. Right away when they're drunk on the street, William Holden is talking about, oh yeah, just have like executions on live television. Why not? And it's a joke. But no, it just becomes what it is. My favorite moment of that year we watched Network was the meeting they have with the communists, the militant communist party. They're talking about negotiating profit sharing, They're negotiating their contract with the militant communists. One of the funniest things I've ever seen in the movie is that scene right there.
And they have to talk to their agents and their lawyers, and it's ridiculous.
Distribution rights.
Yeah, you're not cutting into my distribution rights.
Kidding me? And I said, they're wanting to turn a communist terrorist into an Archie Bunker type. That is again beyond. The Ned Beatty speech is one of the greatest things I've ever seen in a movie. It covers, I'm just kind of going through my notes here, the idea that they captured the desire for people who want other people on television to articulate the rage against the establishment. I don't like what's going on, and I need to hear somebody tell me that what I'm feeling is correct. And when I hear it, it just echoes in my brain forever. So I could keep on going about Network, but that is by far, I could not tell you a better choice for this category.
So it was like 99.9999999% sure that you were both going to pick Network. And so I had been having an existential crisis for a month or so now where I'm like, Taxi Driver's close for me. And I know that if Taxi Driver's not in the social media vote, people are going to come for our heads, or my heads probably. And I was like, well, do I just throw it in there because it's in the conversation? I was like, I got to be true to myself. I've got to have integrity on an episode when we're talking about journalism and the importance of truth. I have to tell my truth, which is Network is the best film. And so to those people out there,
De Niro or Scorsese, you don't have to have it for your best film.
And listen, it's not to say that Taxi Driver is not still a relevant movie.
Absolutely.
We said it in that episode, and we said it in this episode. Is Travis Bickle is an incel before we had a word for that. He is a lonely, isolated man, and it is the movie about what lonely, displaced isolation does to young men, which is a serious thing that we as a country are dealing with right now. So it is extremely disturbing and extremely relevant to today in different but similar ways that Network is.
Betsy, I tweeted not very long ago about the fact that I was looking through very, very old blog entries of mine back in like
they're still out there
when I was in my early 20s. And I said, looking through this stuff just reaffirms to me that men in their 20s are a danger to society. Seriously.
Speaking about yourself.
Talking about myself, yes.
Yeah. Or that thing going around right now about the guy's girlfriend. Like, I'm not the problem. It's this. It's a completely different issue I have invented to make sure that I'm not taking responsibility for my own horribleness.
Yeah, and I said in our episode that, I was a lonely male in my 20s at some point, but I had an outlet for such things. I had a job where I actually interacted with people. Travis Bickle, he has people enter his life and leave his life at an hourly clip, or even more frequent than that. So he has so many different mental issues that he needs to have addressed before he can actually, re-enter society. But you know what? It's not going to happen.
You just put in my head, I wonder what Travis Bickle would be like in 2025 with social media at his fingertips. That's a scary proposition.
Yeah, let's not go there. He does some crazy things in 1976, and he gets praised as a hero for it. And that's dark. It's very dark. There are no consequences for his actions.
Yeah, that's the other thing we pointed out is that, there are zero consequences for killing multiple people. throughout this entire movie. 2 different incidences.
Yeah, so to those out there that are inevitably going to be mad that Taxi Driver's not in the conversation, Taxi Driver probably wins a Best Picture if it comes out a year later or, a year prior. That's a whole other discussion. But it probably has a better chance in a different year. This is purely based on the cumulative quality of 1976 and the power of network, which is why all three of us here in this conversation agreed that Network's the best film. However, it will go head to head in the ring with Rocky for the vote. But I'm going to put it on record right now. If Network doesn't win Revised Picture, I'm going to be mad as hell. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to take it. All right. So before we wrap everything up, I did want to remind people I'll be taking time to answer all the 1976 listener questions submitted in a special mailbag episode that will release 1 week after this goes up. I want to thank everybody again that takes time to submit those questions. They are always appreciated. That's going to do it for the recording, but this is only the beginning. Now that our picks have been made, it's up to you, the fans, to decide what goes into the Almanac as the true winners. We'll be putting up social media polls across 5 platforms in the coming days, and I need your votes to be cast. Again, the more places you follow, the more opportunities you have to vote for the actors, the directors, and the films that you like. Before we sign off, though, I do want to take a moment to talk about what's on the way from Never Seen It. It's been so wonderful having the two of you here. So this episode's going to go up Friday, June 6th. What should people be anticipating from Never Seen It over the summer?
So we do a thing every year, it's usually in the summertime, that we call our Decades series, where we start in the 60s and we go all the way to today, and we do 1 year, one movie from each of those years. So 65, 75, 85, and so on. So that's going to be starting for us in June. And we just decided, what the heck did we decide?
We're doing Cat Ballou for our
Ballou.
first for 1965 Sunday after this episode is posted. 75. We're watching Jaws.
Someone in this room hasn't seen Jaws.
I've never seen Jaws.
By the time this episode comes out, you will have seen Jaws.
Yes, yes.
So don't be too mad, listeners. He will have seen it by the time this is out.
Yes.
And that will be just in time for, in July, I'll have an episode going up where Jaws will be in that conversation. So I can't wait to listen to what you all have to say about Jaws specifically. I also want to shout out, so I'm not just saying this because I have you here. I'm genuinely saying this. Never Seen It is in the conversation for one of my favorite podcasts. And the reason why I love listening to your show so much, beyond just the personality that the two of you have and the chemistry that the two of you have, I wonder why you have such good chemistry. Maybe it's because you're married. I don't know. But I love the conversations that you have. I also love the format of your show, which is honestly different than any other format I've ever heard, where the first few minutes you get to hear the two of you talk about what you're about to experience with only kind of a vague idea of what's on the way. And then you, in the immediacy, like you, from what I understand, you guys stop the movie, credits stop rolling, you sit down at the mics and you just hit play. And so you're getting like in real time processing of what you've just seen.
Exactly.
Which is really hard when we go to new movies in the theater and driving home in silence.
Is that what you do?
Yes,
Genuinely,
we can't talk about it.
We don't talk about the movie until the mic is recording. Like, truly, we do not. And that's why a lot of the movies we watch are older, because it's much easier than sitting in a car awkwardly for 10 or 20 minutes.
I was going to say, I hope your theater's close to you so you don't have a long drive.
I mean, it's South Dakota. Everything's pretty close.
And I also will say about Never Seen It, one of the cool things is, like, with this show, there's basically a pretty basic premise and everything's going to kind of be the same. And some people like that and some people don't. And that's fine. What I like about Never Seen It is the variety with which your episodes are. And one of my favorite things is you obviously are part of this community. And so you're involved in awards season. And so you're deep in the thralls of all of the heavy shit that's out there for award season. And then right after award season's over, you just go on the opposite end of that pendulum. For people who might not know, what do you do immediately after the Oscars?
We get back on our bullshit is what we do.
No. Betsy, we go into the gutter.
We go to the gutter.
The past 2 years, we have gone completely in the gutter after the Oscar season is over. This year, we did a bad movie series where we covered The Room for the first time. Neither of us have ever watched The Room.
The movie that came out right after the Oscars was Gigli.
We had Gigli right away after that. The year prior, we did Stripper Sunday. All stripper movies all the time.
Striptease. We watched Striptease after the Academy Awards.
That's right. That was our first one after. Yeah.
That was the moment where I was like, these people are ride or die for me, because I was like, wow, that's such a wild swing that it made me so happy. And for people who might not be aware, you have a Patreon. You want to plug your Patreon real quick?
Yeah, it is patreon.com/neverseenitpod. We have 4 active shows that are all about movies. We have a couple of other shows that are not about movies where we're just kind of shooting the shit because, hey, we're married. We like to talk to each other. The first show is the Never Seen It Movie Club, which is the idea of our main show, Never Seen It, is movies we haven't seen ever. Either one of us or neither of us have seen it. The Movie Club is actually movies that we have seen a ton of times that Betsy and I can't cover on the main show, so we have to cover it over there.
We need to talk about them, though.
Yes.
It's imperative.
Exactly. And it's some of our favorite stuff. It's not necessarily movies that are like being talked about in Oscar. They're not the highest praised movies.
We watched Dennis the Menace from the 90s on this show.
We did.
Okay?
We also, this year, we're like, at least for the first half of the year, we're doing stuff from our childhood that we really liked. But last year, we did all movies like, we did Margin Call. We did Children of Men. Children of Men. I know you haven't done that episode yet. Children of Men is maybe the highest quality movie I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, we have a whole episode about why it's incredible and just gets better every time you watch it.
That was our episode 1.
But yeah, so we have that one, and then we have a show called Real Love where I force him to watch romance, and he hates
rom-coms, romance, whatever.
Well, it's usually a rom-com, but I will reserve the right to throw in like a true like romance. Like we watched The Notebook, which I wouldn't call it a rom-com.
No, it's not.
No. But then, I have to give him one to torture him once in a while. We watched Simply Irresistible from 99, which was like one of the worst movies he's ever seen. And I knew that going in, but I had to because it makes for a good
content.
And then the one we keep mentioning, the reason we watched The Omen was we started doing a show called The Wayback Machine. We have a randomizer wheel going from 1960 to 2010. And we go to whatever year it tells us, whatever month we're going to be in, and we have to pick a movie that was playing in the theater. So it could be something we've seen. It could be something that has been re-released. It could be something that's been in the theater for 6 months.
Last month was April in the time that we were recording this. It landed on 1999.
And in April 99, there's one movie you watch.
We covered The Matrix. And that was the one and only time for the Wayback Machine we actually covered a movie that we had already seen.
Yeah.
Every other one is completely random.
But that's how we watched The Hustler, because we had never seen The Hustler, and it sent us to the 60s. And I was like, I want to watch The Hustler. And it was amazing. Yeah. I was obsessed with that. I was like, somebody could make this movie their entire personality, and that someone is me.
Last year, we did a show called Box Set, which is, hey, we just watch all 3 movies of a trilogy.
We watched Magic Mike.
We did the Magic Mike trilogy, which was a follow-up to Stripper Sunday last year.
And we're trying to find a way to bring that back, but unfortunately, most of the boxes are so big.
Yeah.
Like Mission Impossible, we have another one coming out this summer. We have not seen that many of the Mission Impossible series. And I've seen 3. So there's a lot of ground to cover, but nobody wants to spread that out over an entire year at this point.
I don't know what we're going to do with that one yet.
So we'll figure it out. Yeah. But that's the one that we kind of set aside for a little while so that we could do Never Scream It 101, which in October, our show becomes Never Scream It, where we watch horror movies. And so we've just taken that and expanded it through the entire year. And so far we've done stuff like the next one that's coming out is Videodrome. So we're doing body horror next month.
Yep.
We did the Blair Witch Project, which neither of us had ever watched.
We did 28 Days Later.
So we've done like zombies, the fast zombies, found footage. We're trying to dip into like a lot of subgenres. We did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
which was incredible.
Because
I love that movie
we
so
were
much.
like, it's like the OG of the slasher movies. and we hadn't watched it.
Yeah.
So we're trying to pick like, okay, what's a subgenre?
Yeah.
And then go from there. So there's a little more structure to those as we are giving ourselves the education about horror. And we have a listener, a friend in town, and he has been very excited about this. He sent us a long email.
Yeah, he's been very generous with his time.
Every decade, these are the movies that are good. These are the movies that are great.
Yeah.
You should definitely watch all of these movies. And it's like 70 movies. He has been very thorough. So I know he's looking forward to us continuing this show so that we actually cover all that ground he would like us to cover.
And we call it Never Scream at 101 because this is literally an education for us because we know nothing about horror. Everything that we cover for our show is brand new.
It's so great that you're like babies in the horror world because the amount of you're throwing out so many of my favorite films. Like when you throw out Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that's like so important to my love of horror, and the fact that you're like discovering all these movies is amazing to like get to experience that whole genre really, which is, as you mentioned with subgenres, there's just an endless bounty of greatness in there.
And we are covering on that show, it is the foundational movies for each subgenre. So, you know, Blair Witch Project was not the first found footage movie, but it was the one that made it popular. Texas Chainsaw Massacre wasn't necessarily the first slasher movie, but it was extremely popular, and so on and so forth.
And
so,
we haven't actually recorded the Videodrome episode at the time we're recording this.
Yeah.
But I know what that movie means for David Cronenberg.
Right. Like we did The Fly like 2-3 years ago for Never Scream It, and that was gnarly. So I know this was going to be even, we're recording that as soon as we get back from vacation.
But what we're discovering as we're, first of all, finding, oh, maybe we actually do like horror, which we were both under the apprehension. I don't think I like that. I don't think I like that genre because the little I've spent there wasn't a fan. But now we're doing more of it that we're starting to see the influence. Like every once in a while, we'll watch a movie that is earlier, it predates something we have seen. I go, well, that's like that other movie we watched. And so the connections will be made. That's the goal with that one in particular. That show is very much, we want to be able to appreciate where we got this, where we came from, to see how we got to where we are now.
Yeah, and we're already planning our October series of movies this year. Like
we
already have 2 on our list right now. We're absolutely going to do some other shows that we do on Patreon. Like we do something called the Conversation Pit, which is one of us picking a topic.
It's this.
Yeah,
we're just talking,
picking a topic not about movies and just talking about it. Last one we did was some weekend. We went out to some open houses in town, just to browse. Let's look around. Like we own our own house, and we like to talk about. Hey,
we're not moving.
Not in this economy.
We just like to snoop.
Yeah, we just like to go into other houses, find out what we like to see, and maybe eventually we might want to do something similar to
and
that.
how the others live.
Yeah, and we've talked about going grocery shopping. We've talked about what
conversation pits,
just conversations,
1970s architecture.
And of course, we don't actually have a conversation pit. We would love to have a conversation pit in this house. That was built in 1974.
Our house is from the 70s, but it did not come with a pit, and it's very disappointing.
Well, I will make sure to have the link to the Patreon in the description. Independent podcasting is hard. It's a lot of work. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes.
And then people think you're AI.
And then at the end of it, they think you're a robot. But please support Betsy and Trent. Check out their Patreon. The amount of content that they have under that is it's infinite, it feels like. And so I hope that you go discover their show on Spotify, Apple, whatever, but do dive into the Patreon because they've got so much content under there. It's crazy. Again, I'll have all of that stuff. I'll make sure to promote you guys really, really well because I love what you two do with Patreon. You are very much an inspiration for me to one day take that plunge down Patreon when my children are a little older and I have a little more time. At the moment, I don't have time for that much content, so enjoy it while you can.
You're telling me that watching 60 movies a month for your one episode is a lot of work? I don't know how you came to that conclusion.
I have a hard time just watching 2 a week.
It's a gross amount of movies I have to watch, yes. But I have plans to slow it down eventually.
Says the guy with guests scheduled for 2 years from now. You're such a liar, Andrew. You're such a liar.
It's true. It's true. I have a sickness. I can't help it. All right. Well, look out for the upcoming 7th episode of season 2 in July. I'm going to be joined by 3 guests. This will be the one and only time I'm going to have 3 guests for this season. I've got 2-time guest Kieran B from Best Picture Cast. I've got 1-time guest Mike Emmel from Cinemusts. And I've got a first-time guest Peterson Dew Hill. And we're going to be going back 1 year further than the episode we're talking about right now to another one of the greatest Best Picture lineups of all time. That's right, 1975. So we're talking about Barry Lyndon, Dog Day Afternoon, Jaws, Nashville, and so many more, but where Milos Forman's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest claimed that year's Best Picture award at the Oscars. Again, you can find me on Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, Letterboxd, TikTok, Threads. I'm everywhere. Rev Almanac's the handle. There's going to be timestamps on this on every single category in case you need to go back and check out a certain part. I will also have links to everything that Betsy and Trent are doing on all their socials, on the Patreon, everything. Please go check the 2 of them out. I'm just going to put this on record right now. I've never done this before. This is the first time. I think that the conversation we just had was the best one I've had show to date, and it's entirely because of the 2 of you. I cannot thank you enough for taking the plunge, going and picking this year, putting so much time and effort in. I had the best time over the last few hours. I hope you had a lot of fun. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you for including us, because as we keep saying, the 70s are such a blind spot. And if not now, when? And so when we picked this, we were like, if we're going to do it right. You know, don't just like watch the 5 and call it a day. I watched 39 movies and there's more I could have done.
Yeah, you 2 are machines. I appreciate every single second you put in. This was a great conversation. I had a blast. Hope all the listeners did. Again, I'm Andrew, and I cannot wait to see you next time.